What about the two?
Good thing to expand.
Apparently I wasn't loud enough. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 7th meeting, regular meeting of the City Council of Powell River, held on the ancestral lands of the Kalama Nation. We've got a nice gallery today and lots on the agenda. So I will start off, since we've got a full house, might as well get the announcements going so we get the most promotion possible for all the events happening in town. And there's a lot of them, from sports to craft fairs. So I'll look over to Councillor Isaacson on my right, because she's typically ready to go with a few things, but
this time around, but I would like to mention a couple things. There's a couple of Momento Mori events still going on, which is about a month of acknowledging death in different ways. There's an intro to modern dance up at the Cuthett Arts Center above the library on Saturday from 1 to 3. Other events that have happened already include the opening of the memory telephone. I forget the exact name of it at the cemetery. So that's one. Councillor Almeida mentioned on Tuesday that Diwali celebrations are continuing, and some of them will be happening this weekend at the Sikh temple up near VIU. And then also on the 16th coming up is the first, perhaps annual, Coast Mountain Fest, being hosted by the Townsite Brewery and the Gear Attic, which is a new consignment and new sports supply store at the base of the Townsite Market. And so there's going to be activities all day from a variety of people. And I believe that's also the day of the Townsite Holiday Crawl happening in that area. So super busy. And I will stop there.
Councillor Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. Just Remembrance Day on Monday, 9:30, the parade in the town site. 10 o'clock, the service in Dwight Hall, and followed by that ceremony around the cenotaph. See you there. And I'd like to add something to item 1 as 1-2 after the Community Force Grant presentation, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Dope.
Nothing new, Chair.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. So I'll just mention the telephone of wind that was installed at the Cranberry Cemetery. That opening ceremony is actually just passed. It was on November 3rd. So if you went, that was awesome. I just wanted to mention that. Remembrance Day coming up, and the Brooks High School Remembrance Day ceremony is this Friday, so I intend to be there, and so I'm looking forward to that. And that's it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palm.
Yes, thank you, through Chair. I have a couple of short announcements to make tonight. The first, it's with great pleasure that I have the opportunity to announce tonight that there was a significant ceremony conducted this past weekend in Burnaby, and it involved our Powell River Villa Soccer Club. And in our midst tonight is Mr. Dave McLennan, who is the president of Villa, and he is going to come forward and tell us all about what transpired and a little bit about the history of the club. Mr. McLennan.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Acting Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. It's quite an honor to be here today. As Councillor Palm mentioned, on the 2nd of November, 9 of us from the Villa Soccer Club attended a ceremony from BC Soccer. We were inducted, as he mentioned, into the British Columbia Soccer Hall of Fame. Fortunately, this evening, I was the only one that was able to attend. We do have a Villa Soccer practice. Our founding coach, Ian Livingston, wasn't able to be here, and one of the builders of the club, Bill Cornwall, as well. But in the mix of us, we have 2 former players, Councillor Palm and Todd Phillips. So
The reason we were inducted into the BC Soccer Hall of Fame, which by the way has been around since 2019, our club over the 51 seasons has been honored by winning 4 Vancouver Island League soccer titles, 4 Sir Jackson Cups. We've sent 3 people to the All-Star team, the ISL. At this time, I want to recognize and give a huge thank you to the Powell River Community Forest for providing us with funds to purchase a 2024 Ford 24-passenger bus for use, because we play on the island, and so does the Powell River Youth Soccer rep teams. Also, I would like to give a huge thanks to the Corporation of the District of Powell River / City of Powell River for their excellent ongoing support, the Parks Department, Civic Properties, for the use of the field and the facilities. Again, thank you to Community Forest and the City of Powell River.
Yes, Mr. McLean, could you just come forward for a second, please? I've got a couple of words to say myself. And first of all, sir, I want to thank you for your service to the city over your many years of being an employee with
36
to be exact. And your endeavors with our cadets for many years. I know you've worked in that capacity and you've volunteered all over this community, doing a fantastic job in service to all of our community members. So, sir, please give a big round of applause to Mr. McLennan. And I'm going to just share a short story. And that is, when I first came to town, and I went for my job interview with Mr. Schmunk at Ocean View, who was the principal of the time, he looked at me and said, "I see on your resume you play soccer." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, if I hire you, you cannot play for Villa. You have to go every weekend and take our teams all over Vancouver Island and BC to compete." And I said, "Sir, I would gladly do that." And by the way, he hired me. So the next year I was transferred to Brooks. And no one gave me any stipulation that I couldn't play that year. So obviously I was out training with Villa and landed a spot on the team. And it was a great season. I was new to the community, made many friends, found out what the Villa Soccer Club was all about. And one of the snippets that I've seen in the write-up this past weekend from your event was that Villa, over its 51 years in operation, has never, ever forfeited a game. And that is something coming out of this semi-isolated community. When you're dealing with weather, you're dealing with ferries, you're dealing with hotels. That is an outstanding, sir, accomplishment of what that club has done to represent this city. And I am very proud to have at one time served for that 1 year, because I had to go back to coaching every weekend. And when I did play that season, it was tough delivering a team back home Saturday night and getting on the ferry to Victoria the next morning. But I loved every second of it. Some of the fondest memories of my life was playing in that league for 14 seasons. So thank you very much, sir, for being here tonight. And please pass on our sincere congratulations to your organization. Now, Chair, just for my second announcement. This is not something that I'm proud to announce tonight, but it's something that I have to announce tonight and I want to announce tonight. And that was at the Committee of the Whole meeting on October 22nd. We had a discussion that day and a report come forward from our staff regarding our community forest and this year's recipients, which are many in the audience tonight. And when I read the report, I wasn't feeling too good because there was certain small pieces in the report that I didn't quite feel were appropriate. But I'm not going to get into specifics. And some of my comments that day may have been taken as offensive to staff who work hard to do their work and produce reports. And I'm not calling into any disrespect any staff member on the comments I made. The comments that I made in regards to the report were simply to protect our Community Forest Board members who may have interpreted the wording in a certain fashion. And my whole purpose and my compliments or announcements that day, I know they were feeling their nose was a little out of joint, and I was trying to protect their interests for the fine work that they've done since Mary Elsgaard has been here in that chair over 16 years ago when they delivered their first check. And we could never thank our Community Forest Board enough for the fine work they do. So I want to sincerely apologize to any members of the public I may have offended. I want to sincerely apologize to any staff member or members I may have affected, because that simply was not any of my intent. I regard our staff members with the utmost professional authority to do their job. And if I bring into any question, it's simply to protect the interests of the people that are in this chamber. So thank you, Chair, for allowing me to state that tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. A few other announcements about events coming up. This weekend, there is, for those that are into crafting or interested in crafts, that season is upon us. The Lang Bay Hall is hosting a craft fair this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I know the Saturday time's 10 to 2. I think Sunday might be a little bit different, but head on down there. I know there's a young group of budding future entrepreneurs that have done a few crafts specifically that'll be there on Saturday as well, to check them out. The Kings are also in town this Saturday, Friday and Saturday, playing against Coquitlam for 2 games that way. And then there's the complex is going to be super busy as the minor hockey minor hockey association is hosting a tournament for their U13 and U15 rep teams. So that'll be a lot of games going on over there if you want to see some youth playing hockey as well. Lots of young bodies coming in from the Lower Mainland and from the island. So our minor hockey association provides a lot of value to our community for the tourism area as well. Next weekend, another craft fair happening at Italian Hall, 10 to 4. So you can check that out as well. And then our Regals are in town next weekend hosting a new team from Cowichan. They'll be Friday the 15th at 7 p.m. and the 16th at 5 p.m. So lots of things to see and do over the next couple weeks. Moving along, we have next on the agenda our Powell River Community Forest. Oh yes, and before I get into that, thank you, Councillor Southcott, for the reminder. I am obviously not the mayor in physicality. The mayor would love to be here today, especially for the community forest grant applications. As I think everyone in the community knows, he's away with leave. He will be hoping to join in for part of the agenda today, but his energy level wasn't there to attend the entire meeting. So we wish him a speedy recovery and look forward to seeing him again soon. Councillor Palm.
We haven't adopted tonight's agenda yet, have we?
No, because 1.1 comes before that.
Thank you. I just want to say I have an addition. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll probably get there in about 45 minutes for adoption of the agenda. So, okay, so I have the utmost honor to introduce our Community Forest Grant recipients. We've got 12 in the audience. I think most of them are here today. So I'm going to introduce all the recipients and then invite them to come up one by one or to just share a small tidbit, 30 to 60 seconds or so, just as to what the funds will be used for and so on and so forth. So City Council is pleased to award the funding to the following 12 organizations who successfully applied to the Powell River Forest Community Grant Reserve. First one is Powell River Search and Rescue, who will be building an infrastructure of improvements Revised project plan. I'm getting into too many details here. Anyways, total award just over $111,000. Kelly Creek Community Church is building a community pavilion. They received funding in the spring. Project went a little bit over, so this is a top up of about $10,000 to meet their goal. The West Coast Wind Swim Club will be receiving $10,000 towards competitive swim equipment. Townside Actors Guild Society, a little over $4,000 for lighting and sound equipment. St. Paul and St. Anglican Church receiving a little over $6,000, or exactly $6,000, for the Sycamore Gardens Garden Shed. The Cathette Museum and Archive Society receiving $24,000 for an artifact and exhibition conservation. The Powell River Youth Soccer Association receiving $9,000 for a storage facility to be held at JP Dallas. The Powell River Kiwanis Housing Society receiving $22,500 for replacement of the range and installation in their common area in Gardner Manor. The Texada Island Volunteer Firefighters Association, $12,400 for contribution to a wildfire attack UTV. The Cathette Regional Cycling Association, Phase 2 Mount Mahoney Mountain Bike Trail Network, which is a massive project they're working on. In this segment, they're getting $265,000. Tourism Powell River is doing some signage renewal and additional lighting outside their facility. That'd be $26,000. And the Cathette Division of Family Practice, additional furnishing for rental accommodation to attract healthcare professionals, $22,000. So I'd like to call up first, do we have a representative from, actually before we do that, can we get a quick round of applause for all those grant recipients? So we'd like to call them up a little bit to share how the funds will help them out, and then we'll do a group picture after everyone has had a chance to speak. So do we have someone from Powell River Search and Rescue? Mr. Phillips. Luck of the draw.
Just to give you a quick heads up, this was actually a grant from 2022. We had some problems with contractors and permits and stuff like that, so the work never ever did get done. And we now have got everything in place and about to start, so we can finally, 3 years later, get this going. It's for insulation, drywall, stuff like that. The building was the original Cranberry Fire Hall in the 1920s. So it's time to do a little bit of upgrades and make it a little more nice for us and a little bit more efficient for our equipment to keep it dry. So thank you again for the money. We're finally going to get the job done this time.
And thank you for the service. And thank you, Mr. Phillips, for the service that Search and Rescue provides to our entire region. Kelly Creek Community Church, I don't believe we have anyone in the audience. No, okay. The West Coast Wind Swim Club.
Our fourth season. This is our first time applying, so we're very excited. Some pretty big equipment is to help our club grow more and also help develop our swimmers achieve all they want to achieve. We've got some pretty excited young ones and older ones in our community going for schools. This will really help us. So thank you.
Next up, Townside Actors Guild Society.
Council, Mayor, Stephen and Stephanie Miller send their regrets since they are out of the country. I'm Ketty Schoenfeld, and on behalf of Townside Actors Guild, I'd like to thank Community Forests for the grant to purchase much needed lighting and sound equipment. The equipment will allow us to continue offering quality live theater that will engage, educate, and entertain the people of the Cathette Region District. Thank you very, very much.
St. David and St. Paul Anglican Church.
Acting Mayor, Councillors, and Director of the Community Forest Fund. I'm here to thank you for your support. 2 years ago, our parish was thinking of ripping out the permaculture garden called Sycamore Gardens because we just couldn't afford to maintain it. You stepped up with a grant. It's now a thriving garden. The community is feeling welcome to come in there and make use, harvest whatever they need, apples, plums, herbs, vegetables. It's not unusual to be working in the garden, have people walk by and thank you for working there and providing them with that resource, and it wouldn't be possible without your support. Thank you.
The Cathette Museum and Archive Society.
Oh, thank you so much to the Community Forest for this grant. We're really excited to put the funds towards some earthquake proofing for our artifact storage and some more conservation and preventative conservation supplies. And for working with that we're looking forward to working with the city to upgrade our security and our little bit of a facelift for the entrance, perhaps. And yeah, thanks again.
Powell River Youth Soccer.
Yeah, the money is going to be used to put a new storage facility in at JP Dallas. Last year we had to use one that was not very big and didn't give us a lot of space to store stuff. And a lot of times the coaches had to bring stuff with them every single day, bring it out of their vehicles. So it's just going to enable the coaches not to have to carry so many balls and stuff around. So thank you.
Thank you. Powell River Kiwanis Housing Society.
Hello, my name is Eric. I'm the Executive Director of the Powell River Kiwanis Housing Society. We operate the Kiwanis Garden Manor, which is the only assisted living facility in the regional district, and also the Kiwanis Village, which is an apartment for seniors, an apartment building. And I'm here on behalf of the board to say thank you. We're going to use this to upgrade the ovens and ranges in our kitchen. Our kitchen operates 10 hours a day, 365 days a year. And I have to say we serve really good food. So thank you. This will help us continue to do that.
Mr. Hargrave, that sounded like an invitation. Next up, the Texada Island Volunteer Firefighters Association.
Acting Mayor and Council, on behalf of the Texada Island Volunteer Firefighters Association, I wish to thank Powell River Community Forests and City of Powell River for providing us with these grant monies. Texada is a large, heavily forested island with limited firefighting capacity. BC wildfire resources are stretched thin, and the limitations of ferry access means they often cannot provide timely access. Both Gillies Bay and Venanda have volunteer fire departments that are equipped to deal primarily with structural fires within their districts. However, we are also deployed by BC Wildfire as a first response to forest fires on Texada. To address the need for quick response, the Texada Island Volunteer Firefighters Association took on the challenge of obtaining an initial attack vehicle in the form of a UTV with a mounted fire EMS skid unit that could be used for off-road situations. Through our community fundraising campaign, we successfully raised the funds to purchase the UTV vehicle, and this grant will now allow us to purchase the fire EMS skid unit to complete the project. So on behalf of the Texada Island Volunteer Firefighters Association and the entire community on Texada Island, I wish to thank you for your generous support of this project. which will help us protect our island from the ongoing threats posed by wildfire. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, the Cathett Regional Cycling Association.
Councillors. Yes, thank you very much to the Community Forest group and the city itself. We've been working on this project for a number of years, building a world-class recreational facility for Powell River. As we talked about soccer and other sports before, this is part of our culture here in Powell River. We have a huge mountain bike community, and the money that we've been able to use through the Community Forest Grant has been able to build that infrastructure. We had an amazing grand opening, working also with the Common First Nation. We've been working closely with the Teacham Forest Products and BC Timber Sales to get access to the land that we've been able to build this great facility on. I think I want to go into a lot of detail, but I think we're going to come in a future delegation and actually bring you guys a slideshow and actually show you what we've been up to and what it looks like, and maybe even some point of view action cam where you can follow us down the hills and see what it's really like. It's a really amazing feature. All this has been done with volunteer efforts. Spending the first phase has been very successful. We got more work done than we ever expected to with that first grant money from last year, and we're even improving our process to stretch the money as far as we can. We're also looking for all other funding opportunities through tourism grants and other means to, again, kind of stretch this money as far as we can and continue to build that asset. This is a tourism investment. It's for the Powell River public, but we are bringing in tourists to Powell River. We are bringing in young families. We are introducing young families to the sport of mountain biking. It's a very positive experience. If you're driving down Marine Avenue in the summertime and you see all these cars with bikes parked on the back or stored on the back of them, those are tourists visiting this town, spending money at the restaurants, hotel nights, and investing in the community. And many of them are actually going to move here because they like what they see. So. But yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to carry on with our work. We're gonna do a good job of expanding the trail network, and our main goal is to make it more accessible to beginner users and expand the ultimate recreational benefit for the overall community. So thanks again, and we'll do our best to spend this money wisely and make for a strong asset for Powell River.
I think just today, actually, I saw a truck with 3 or 4 mountain bikes on the back heading down to the Westview Ferry Terminal. So it's definitely not just the summer months. Next up, tourism, Powell River. Do we have?
City Councilors, I'm Christy Mitchell, and as Vice President of Tourism Powell River, I'd like to thank you and Powell River Community Forest. The funding will be used for installing solar lighting on the 4 welcome signs at the city limits, and then we have 2 in our National Historic District, showcasing our welcoming spirit, and now at night too. So thank you very much.
And the Cathett Division of Family Practice. Not here. Okay. Well, we will connect with them some other time. So what we'd love to do is, I believe we use the ramp normally to gather everyone. So if those, it doesn't have to be just a speaker, but everyone, I see a lot of Mount Mahoney shirts. So anyone from the organizations who wants to be part of the picture, come on up over here on the side, and we'll take a quick photo of Councillor Palm before everyone starts moving.
Just before that, I just want to ask a pertinent question, and that was that when we discussed these handouts previously at a council or committee of the whole, I noticed the Community Forest Board was in the audience, and they didn't get a chance to say much that day. I'm just wondering if Mr. Hempel wants to come forward and say a few words. who is the president
He
of
seems reluctant.
Community Forest.
I thought we were going to be able to sneak through and I could sit in the back there. So I just wanted to say thanks for council approving the fall 2024 grants and also to invite the recipients. I think that's a good thing for the community. And I noticed Lisa handing out some paperwork, and that's another positive outcome as well, to be able to take the contracts away, get them signed, and get the money working in the community. That's a huge benefit as well. So thank you very much. And as you know, our reporter is limping around, and so we brought Angie Smith along to take a picture of council and some of the grant recipients. It's probably not too good outside like we did in the spring. So usually we just get in here somewhere and should be able to do it in 10 minutes or so, if that's fine with the council.
Yeah, so if the group members of the group winners can come up to the ramp over here, and we will we'll take a photo.
Could fit anywhere on the.
You're going to send that to the paper? You're going to send it to the paper? Thank you.
So whoever.
To the world.
Are you going to stick around and get a picture of our veterans?
We're on next. Oh. Be good, because we've got people here. We can do this fairly.
I texted just, like, can we make a motion?
Okay. I forgot to mention one other little tidbit, technology. I have been informed, for those that might be watching online, that there may be some challenges with the video transmission tonight, but that the audio should still carry through. So if the video happens to go out, I've been told the audio should continue. However, the magic of technology seems to work. So moving along to Councillor Southcott, you had wanted to make a comment, and then we'll get into the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Given a lot of thought to this for the past couple of weeks as well. I have an apology to make. 2 weeks ago, Council received a staff report regarding the Powell River Community Forest. It contained a perspective familiar to Council in finance reports, but not to the community forest. Strong reactions were expressed in that meeting that reflected how unfamiliar that perspective was. Those reactions questioned the professional credibility of our staff, actually, including CFO Denniston, Manager Cuthbertson, and others who contributed. As acting mayor and chair, I failed to grasp that and to address it in the moment, and I apologize for failing to intervene. An important role of the chair is to maintain a respectful work environment for everyone. Our city and community are very fortunate to be served by excellent, hardworking staff. Their work is at the heart of everything the city is involved in, particularly finance. We profoundly depend on them. It's very important to me that Council, each one of us, provide leadership by maintaining a productive culture and positive work environment at Council meetings, and that our city staff can trust, so our community can continue to thrive, like we've just seen such a beautiful demonstration of. I need to do better than I did 2 weeks ago. That is my commitment. I'm sure a work in progress, as we together continue to face increasing challenges of our changing times. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott, for those words. We'll move into the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any? Councillor Palm.
Yes, I'd like to just make one addition to our agenda for tonight, adoption, and that is under item 13, notice of motion. Would like to add notice of motion to be incorporated in a couple of weeks' time, which is in regard to the correspondence we received on Tuesday from our ratepayers associations. I believe all three of them. In regards to the two motions they brought forward, would like to put them on a future for discussion.
Okay. Councillor Isaacson?
Just a question of clarity. You want to put them on a future motion. So is this like a notice of motion that you're providing right now? Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Any other adjustments to the agenda? Councillor Isaacson,
I'll move adoption of the agenda
as with addition.
with the addition of a notice of motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Councillor Southcott. There's no other questions. All in favor? Unanimous. Moving on to 3.1, the adoption of the minutes held October 24th, 2024. Councillor Elliott.
I move the minutes of the regular council meeting held October 24th, 2024 be adopted.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. On to 4.1. Pleased to welcome members of the Royal Canadian Legion regarding Remembrance Day transportation. You're welcome to bring the wheelie chair too if you want.
Maybe we can.
CAO, can we go to the microphone, please?
Thank you. To the chair, I just want to make an announcement right away that it is International Indigenous Veterans Day tomorrow. So we will respect that as well as the November 11th. We have been doing our business around town since this October the 25th. We're not allowed to put anything out until the last Friday of the month in the year and of October, yeah. So everything went out to the businesses. We've covered all the way from Lund to Sultry Bay with little boxes, and we usually do fairly well with everything coming in, and we'll pick them up on the 12th. So we have something really special happening this year. We have the great-grandson of BC recipient John McGregor, and with the hall announced that I believe he's named after him as well. Anyway, they will be coming over for the service. There's 3 boys. There's a nephew, and besides a great-grandson and an uncle, and a few of them anyway coming over. So he will be taking the salute. They will also be doing a wreath in memory of John McGregor, so BC recipient. And on a sad note, we lost one of our few that we only have 2 World War II veterans left now. Chuck Sparks passed away a week ago, so we'll be honoring him that day too. So I think everything is ready to go and all good. We're getting the wreaths ready, and we have about 36 of them this time that will. Some are pre-placed, so we have 13 that are going to be actually laid this year. So I have a group with me, as you see, our Sergeant at Arms, Alice McCallum, and who's behind me? Chris Carnell, one of the guys that helps with all the wreaths and stuff. Bruce McLeod, he's new to our committee this year. So, and of course, everybody knows House Guard. And he's proud, got his new medals on down. So, thank you very much for your support too over the years, and see you again next year. Thank you.
There's a few comments from the members of council. So I'll start with Councillor Southcott, then Councillor Palm.
Thank you, Chair. I can't miss this opportunity, Ms. Crutchley, to honor you. It's kind of a personal thing for me because you were around when my dad was still around, and he's been gone for over 50 years now. So that represents a long service to this community and to the Legion. My dad was a World War II vet and was a past president of the Legion as well during the expansion of Alexander House. So I just personally thank you and honor your contribution. And I think that you're emblematic of so many who have contributed over many, many years. You're in very good company there, I can see. And I just couldn't miss this opportunity to thank you personally, and I'm sure on behalf of us all, everyone in this room, I presume. Thank you, Karen.
My 25th year.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. Councillor Palm.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say thank you for coming in as on an annual basis as you've done over the many years, and the great work that you do in the community. You are pillars of this community. There's no doubt about that. And I just wanted to say that when I saw the picture in the paper of a recent kickoff in the Powell River Peak, and noticed that the Chief Haggis was in the Legion, along with representatives of the regional district, and did not see a city rep. I just want to let you know that that day we started a pre-meeting at 2:00 that afternoon. And I think the notice that we got was maybe a little late. And so that's why one of us, the city, was absent for that event. But it was nice to see in the picture, ex-Mayor Elsgaard was there standing in.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to know, you all to know, how very honored I am that you choose to come here each year and speak to us. I also had a question about, and thank you for helping us not overlook announcement of International Veterans Remembrance Day for veterans. So for Indigenous veterans. Are you aware of any events happening for that tomorrow?
We do. We also do a candlelight tribute on an annual basis with the cemetery, and it started in 1999. And we knew of 99 veterans interred there. We put out 400 candles on the graves last year, so this year. And lost my train of thought. What did you tell me?
Oh, I was wondering if there was anything occurring tomorrow. The candlelight service happened already, right? Yeah, in May. Yeah. Yeah.
If I may address that, tomorrow, most of the schools have assemblies, and we have veterans talking at them, and they've all been reminded of what tomorrow represents. And on Remembrance Day, there is a wreath that is laid by the Haggis at the cenotaph.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Very honored that you're here again and come back each year to come talk to us. Thank you so much.
And in closing, I'll say the mayor is planning to be there on Monday, but should his health prevent that, I am ready to tag in and present that wreath on behalf of the city as well. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda, 4.2, we have Mike Hatton regarding supportive housing. Mr. Hatton, we saw you just a couple of days ago. Did you have something new for council, or was it a mistake to have you on the agenda both times?
My name is Mike Hatton. I'm an alcoholic. And this has been an interesting thing for me to get involved in something of this. By the way, you're right, jurisdiction was a good word.
Mr. Hatton, if you can just make sure the microphone's right in front of your mouth, that'd be great. Thank you. Helps the people online.
Thank you. Anyway, speaking to this, the business of building another housing unit, or I'm not sure if I should be talking towards the housing unit for the homeless, or whether I should be talking about the bylaws, because that has to come first, I presume. Okay, so I'm here speaking from my point of view, but I would presume because there's a healthy number of people here that are interested in the same problem. I'm not sure, but I would have liked to have seen, I got the impression that when I first started to check into this thing, everything was held on the QT. I wasn't supposed to know anything. I didn't even find out about it until probably 2 weeks ago. So I jumped in to find out what I could from people that were involved in it. I found that there was a definite distrust on my part from the people that are involved in going forward with building a building used for the purposes of housing the unhoused. But it appears also that I'm finding out that there's a fair amount of other things that I didn't think should be happening in it, and I had no recourse, and I still don't have any, because the only place that I can speak is here, and I'm not sure if that's ever going to accomplish anything. I would like it to do so, because I don't really want to shut the whole thing down, but it doesn't make any sense. Nobody's actually come across and made any sense of it. I went into a meeting that I found out about the day before with BC Housing, and again, I was not finding out anything that could give me justification for taking one side or another. But it was important that I did, and I couldn't find anything out. I would like to have you folks realize that I have no real major thing about doing something for humanity. And I know because I've been there. And but I managed to get out because I wanted to. I don't get the impression that they're going to want to get out of their addictions if they're constantly being fed their addictions. This doesn't make any sense to me. And I know that maybe others people will have different opinions, and I'm more than willing to listen at any time about it. But it appears that the people don't have, there's very little guidance. This sounds horrible coming from an old fart like me, but the fact of the matter is that I'm 85. Those people that have an addiction, they're not going to get out of it because in that much of a hurry, because they need to get, one of the things that I found out about in AA was you have to hit bottom first. You've got to go the entire thing all the way down and lose it all. And trust me, I lost it all. So to me, it seems kind of silly if you're feeding them the same thing constantly. Why this is so, and I don't understand. It just doesn't compute why it should be constantly being given this. I don't care what kind of drug it is, whether it's mild or otherwise. If it's the crutch, it's a crutch, it's a crutch. And if you can't get out of it because you desire to get out of it, so building a place like that to me is redundant for the simple reason that it's not going to fix anything. And apparently some of what I'm saying must be true, because when I drive by constantly, because I live up on this new development now and I moved into town, all I see is ambulances and fire trucks outside that place. That being the case, again, it proves it doesn't make any sense. So I'm not sure if I'm coming at this from the right angle. I just know that it doesn't make any sense trying to fix somebody who doesn't really want to. And they won't want to because they haven't hit bottom yet. Living out in the bush ain't nothing. It's mild. These people need to go through this almost to the bottom so that they can figure out how to get back out of it. And they have to admit it. And they can't admit it. This is awkward because I'm not generating any interest there. This is, it's like I'm talking to the paint on the wall. I know this is not exactly but that's me. I only know me. I'm straight up. I have no axe to grind. I gave that axe up a long time ago. So I want something to make sense to me, and that doesn't make sense. Building a building, you already have one. It doesn't work worth a fiddle is proverbial, and they're going to want to build another one. And it's going to cost money. The feds take money from me. They give it away to all kinds of institutions. One of them that they feed is thrift. Okay, this money comes from different sources, but it all comes from the government. And guess where they get it from? Me, you. It comes from all of us. I find this so absurd. It's like a Monty Python show. I'm really, you have no idea how awkward I feel sitting in front of you trying to explain something that doesn't make any sense. I know it's strange. You should be in my shoes right now because I'm trying desperately hard to convince you folks. Please think about it. Don't just indiscriminately do it because it's so easy to do. The easiest thing to do would be if Mike shut up and went home, looked after his wife again, because I'm a caregiver. See, I give to my wife for two reasons. And I do it because I want to do it. I'd like to see something happen here because I'd like to see it happen. Common sense. He's got a baseball cap. I'd love to steal it off of him. Yeah, see, look. Common sense. What happened to it? I'm not used to this. You know, like when I was in the Yukon, I spent 35 years up there. People were straight. Weird, but straight. It was straight up. Awesome folks. Loved it. You could, every time I parted ways with anyone, we shook hands. Nobody does that anymore about anything. I really want to have you guys stop and think, please. There's something not right here. You're going along. Somebody's going, oh, they're just passing the buck. Everyone wants it easy. That's the reason why drugs are the official reason for this is the pill for the guy who's addicted. Yeah, I can see her waving.
Into the microphone. So
Oh, I thought you were trying to give me a bad time.
people online want to hear you too.
Okay, that's the problem with drugs. We take the drugs because it's easy. We always look for the easy solutions. Haven't you figured that out yet? We're lazy. We don't want to do it the hard way. Nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody. I can't even get people to do stuff for me because I can't do it well anymore. So contractors suck. They don't even care. They want $50, $100 an hour. Don't want to pay for it. Don't want to work for it. I don't want to pay for it. And they don't want to work for it. That's what I meant. I could see the expression on your face. Please, I beg you, implore you, think about it. Don't just do it. It's so easy to do it. That's how come these guys here are all fighting, trying to get something done. And they're beating their head against the wall. You've got to grow a pair to understand. You've got to use it. Don't be afraid of it. You're not going to bite me, are you? Any of you? You're not going to punch me? It's just common sense. Why don't people apply that a little more? I realize coming from the bush. I'm a bush freak. I don't mind being called one. But our common sense must prevail. I shouldn't have to come down and do what I'm doing here, doing what I'm doing all the time. I've made 2 or 3 of these excursions into this, and it does the same thing to me every time I come here. Why? What's wrong? Can't you guys, does anything I say make common sense? Does it work? Are you getting this? Again, or is this like I should be staring at the paint again? I want you so badly to turn around and start applying the old things that matter. If you wanted information in a family unit, you spoke about it. Everyone talked up. My father taught me when I was 14 years old, but my first foray into knowing what moral, ethical values and standards were. He took half my first paycheck and he said, "What do you think about that?" And I said, "Well, what am I supposed to think?" And he said, "Just think about it." So the next day he asked me, "What do you think about that?" I said, "I think it's probably okay." He said, "How so?" And I said, "Well, I got a roof over my head, walls holding the roof up. I get fed. My mother washes my stupid clothes. I got it made." He came over, shook my hands and said, "It worked. Thank you." That's really what I sense. I'm trying to do something to you guys. I want you to do it. Think about it. Don't just go home. Grab a cup of coffee or a glass of water. I don't care. It's not important. What's important is thinking. Don't just let it by. Don't do the same thing that everyone else does. Every political, the federal government, the provincial government, they sit in the front of this thing there and they do the easy thing. I hope, like, how is it nearly 4 o'clock? Or whenever it is for them. People work that way. That's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hatton. Councillor Palm, go ahead.
Mr. Hatton, could you please just step forward here one more time? I got a couple of things I would like to say. You come forward, sir. Mr. Hatton, you've been here 2 or 3 times now, and we've gotten to know you. We know where you come from. We know how where you've been. And I just have to say, I think all of us were listening to your delivery tonight, and I can honestly say that was one of the best deliveries I've heard in this chamber for quite some time.
You're capable of doing it too.
You know why? Because you're talking about common sense. And I appreciate it, sir. Don't think I don't.
It's true.
And as you say, in our post-COVID world, a lot of people are not working. We have trouble getting employees. We have trouble filling vacancies. It's rampant throughout. So we hear you very much so. And I would just want to say, again, thank you for coming into this chamber again, sir, and sharing your experience on life. Thank you very much.
Before we move further ahead in the agenda, some information came to me that actually hit my email just before the meeting started today that I didn't get a chance to find out about until after we started. It actually has to do with just a notice of motion that the mayor had requested that I didn't see, so I didn't get a chance to amend to the agenda. It would be appropriate to do it tonight, at least to have the notice of motion on the agenda. Obviously, it'll come at a future agenda, but the only way to add it to the agenda at this point would be to actually rescind our adoption of the agenda add the notice of motion amendment and then to adopt the agenda again. So if the council is willing to put a motion forward to rescind the adoption of the agenda, I will then add the notice of motion. So I got a motion from Councillor Southcott and a second from Councillor Elliott. Is there any questions at all? Seeing none, I'll call the motion, or I'll call the vote. All in favor? 3 and 4. Okay. Any opposed? No opposed, so that's unanimous. So the notice of motion to be added, email here. So the notice of motion, so of course this, like all notices, will come to a future agenda. But that the notice will be that council directs staff to include an expense of $2,500 in 2025 and $1,500 annually thereafter, funded by property tax, for a veteran crosswalk in draft 1 of the 2025 to 2029 financial 5-year financial plan.
So I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Any questions? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Moving along. That takes us to 6.1, Committee of the Whole, meeting held October 8th, 2024. Councillor Southcott, I believe you were the chair. If you wish to summarize anything.
Thank you, Chair. We had various delegations and correspondence. We reviewed we had a lease rate bylaw that we carried, councillor reports, a motion to direct staff to study the old golf course lands from Councillor Doubt. And all of this is available online in detail. And that was our committee of the whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. On to 7.1, temporary use permit 005, renewal emergency shelter at 4746 Joyce Avenue. Is CAO?
Oh, through the chair, I noticed Councillor Doubt had his hand up.
The chair. If you had some comments, and then I'll get to Councillor Doubt.
Through the chair, the temporary use permit in front of you is to extend the use of the building on Joyce Avenue at 4746 Joyce for the purposes of the ongoing use of the shelter for 20 beds. So you've got the details in the report. I also have Director Gao here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO. We'll turn to Councillor Doubt.
I'll move that council renew the temporary use permit 005 to allow non-commercial short-term overnight accommodation use at 4746 Joyce Avenue, legally described as Lot 1, except part and plan 12457 of Lot A, Block 22, District Lot 5036, Plan 6977, commencing December 15th, 2024, and ending March 31st, 2025. And if there's a seconder, I'll talk about it.
Come by Councillor Elliott. Go ahead, Councillor Doubt.
So, this is an extension of a temporary use permit that allows an overnight shelter. Keep people out of the storms, out of the freezing rain, and covered and safe for a short period of time. It only goes until March 31st, 2025, because the facility that would get the temporary use permit will not be in the hands of the operator by that time. Their lease is coming to an end, so it's a short-term extension. We need a place for people to shelter. There needs to be a way to get in out of the rain and the storms, which are coming. We seem to have more every day. And it's up to us. All we have to do, we're not providing money to operate it. We're not leasing a building. We're not hiring staff. All we're doing is issuing a permit to allow the people that want to do it to get the job done. So I'm in support of doing it.
Thank you, Councillor Doubt. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? is unanimous.
There's just one quick comment.
Go ahead, Councillor Palm.
Yeah, so just the public, I just want the public to be aware, and I'm sure that they are, that this is the same location that's been used for a number of years now. And when this first came forward, it was on a temporary basis, and it's been extended. And again, tonight it's been extended. I know the businesses in that area have told me that some of them have been affected. They're looking forward to seeing this location come to an end in terms of this usage. And I think once that ends, they will breathe a sigh of relief with some of the carryings on that has been going on in the area. But, you know, it's going to have to move somewhere else. So we all realize that in these extreme weather conditions and winter months that people need shelter out of the cold. So we're doing the right thing in this regard here tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Moving on to 8.1, the Willingdon Beach campsite budget. CAO.
Through the chair, the report you have for decision before you is to increase the budget for the provision of the operations of the campground at Willingdon Beach. As council is aware, we have had our caretaker give notice, and our attempt to get a bid has resulted in only one proponent. And so staff are looking at something that would give a modest increase for us to continue. And we're hopeful that with that increase in budget, we can attract an appropriate caretaker for the facility. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
I move that council direct staff to amend City of Powell River 5-year financial plan bylaw 2742-2024 to include 11,000 in 2024 and 67,596 in each of the years 2025, 2026, and 2027 and 2028 for caretaker services at the Willingdon Beach campsite. Just a second here.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
So as explained in the report, this cost isn't expected to transfer to taxation, but rather lower the amount that's going to be going into our reserves for taking care of that campground. And council can then discuss ways to address that through our regular budgeting process. This is just to make sure that we have the budget covered to run the campground. The campground does receive revenue as well. And so the revenue that we currently put into the reserves will go down in order to increase the amount that we're putting towards the caretaker. I'm in favor of keeping our campground open and having ideas for how we address that come forward through our budget discussions. Thanks.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Moving to 9.1, the report from the municipal directors of the Cathet Regional District. I know the meeting was just yesterday. Councillor Elliott.
So we actually have 2 meetings to report out on because at our last council session, we were supposed to report out on the October 23rd Regional District report, and that didn't happen, and so we bumped it to this one. I will report out on the October 23rd meeting and hand off to my colleague, Councillor Southcott, for the meeting of yesterday. At our regional district report meeting on October 23rd, the board appointed Director Gisborne to the Community-Based Services Consultation on Local Services to Children with Disabilities Committee, as requested by the Powell River Education Services Society. We did discuss a motion asking the city to contribute to the Community Works Fund to the additional budget required for the Resource Recovery Center. And that motion was referred back to the Finance Committee without decision at that time. We looked at correspondence, including a report from the Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Climate Summit for circulation. So attached to our agenda for that day is a report that outlines what happened at the summit. It was an online summit, so not like it was a virtual summit, and all of the various participation throughout the Vancouver Island coastal communities and the outcomes from that summit are all attached in that report. We also had correspondence about confirming from Fortides Hospice the installation of the telephone of wind at our Cranberry Cemetery, and they indicated they were having a ceremony for blessing that on November 3rd, which took place a few days ago. Motions passed at our regional district meeting on that day included requests from BC Transit, or the regional board requested BC Transit to examine barriers to rural paratransit services, including how it could better serve people traveling for medical appointments as part of their next service review or sooner if they chose. And the board also directed staff to invite BC Transit to attend a future committee of the whole to discuss that with us. The board approved a motion for Rotary donation of an outdoor musical playground at Palm Beach and directs staff to put this project in the 2025 Regional Parks budget. The board respectfully declined participation on the Foundry Anchor table and asked for staff to forward our request for annual updates on that particular initiative. The board passed a request to provide a letter of support for the Synergy Foundation's Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program grant application. And we endorsed the application to UBCM for the volunteer composite fire department's equipment and training fund stream for the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund that is managed by the UBCM. Board approved implementing accepting cash at our new Resource Recovery Center, which should become active sometime in mid-December, as they had to do some things to get that in line. But the new Resource Recovery Center will be accepting cash starting sometime mid-December-ish. We'll have an exact date once the staff get a little further down the road with the things that they need to do. We authorized a 3-year transit expansion initiative, 25-26 to 27-28, and reaffirmed our commitment to service expansion to the TEC-SADA in the 2026 operating year. Made a proclamation for October 2024 being Canadian Library Month. We did a Horizon report on the Savory Island Community Plan Advisory Committee. So the Savory Island is doing an update to the regional district's doing an update to the Savory Island official community plan, and they've created an advisory committee for that. And the list of those folks in the Horizon report can be found on the QRD website. And that was the kind of day we had on October 23rd. Thanks.
Sir Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. So yesterday's board meeting was the annual inaugural meeting where they elect the new board chair. And they decided to elect the board chair from last year, Clayton Brander. He is the new board chair. Also, there was election of vice chairs, and it works fairly similarly to what we do here for acting mayor rotation, except at the regional district board, each member goes in alphabetical order and does the job for 2 months in sequence instead of 1 every 6 months. It was a fairly short meeting because of the meeting that Councillor Elliott just reported on. We had one delegation, and that was very well received. That was Councillor Doubt, who came to address the board, and appreciation was expressed in both directions for his service to that organization and group, and vice versa. So it was kind of a moment of a lot of feeling in that room. There was a consent agenda, which is a lot of things that are basically just passed all at once. There's just one that I'd like to mention, and that was a correspondence from the French school relating to the inacceptability now of recycling materials from ICI, institutional, commercial, and industrial. And that is really a problem. Councillor Elliott might want to speak to this more, but there's been some work through the regional district to try to rectify this huge oversight now because of the inability for that sector of our society to recycle. And that's pretty much everything that I wanted. Oh yeah, there was one resolution that will result in a letter coming to the city. This was discussed in about at least 3 different meetings. It went back and forth between various committees. The letter will be inviting the city to accept an arrangement where the city and regional district share costs, or the overrun budget for the Resource Recovery Center, not per capita, but relative to the tax assessment values in the 2 jurisdictions, which will result in approximately $1.3 million, a little less than $1.3 million for the city, and a little over 1.2 for the regional district to budget. And that is my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. So just at our past committee of the whole a few days ago, I did report out that I'd attended a Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Solid Waste and Circular Economy Committee meeting, which I sit on behalf of the entire regional district. The meeting tried to determine which advocacy issues required advocacy from our folks. And the issue that Councillor Southcott just spoke to about the ICI not being accepted into the recycling stream here in our region as of July 31st impacts many people, including apartments that have their recyclables picked up through the commercial stream. Institutional, commercial, and industrial recycling currently is not accepted by the Recycle BC stream of recycling, which is where all our household cardboards and recycling goes. And that has created a huge problem for most remote communities like ourselves that do not have opportunities to partner with the I guess it would be the market system that was intended to take care of that and piggyback with other larger communities that have the volume to handle that through a commercial or business-like way. And so we've asked our committee to prioritize that, and they've agreed through a motion to advocate and try to change that decision and have Recycle BC continue with accepting that stream. And just so people know, that stream that is not being accepted is currently going into our landfill and increases the amount of waste that we ship south to Washington. And so we pay for it that way. It is lighter, so maybe not such a huge burden on the shipping, but it takes up a lot of volume in a whole truck just to move it. So it is a big problem, and we are exploring many options for that. And so that was my update on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Welcome to the mayor thank you for joining us today. Moving over to 10.1. Draft bylaw 2760 complex waste supportive housing facility. I think the mayor had his hand up, and then Councillor Elliott next. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'm going to propose a motion because, as you recall, I proposed a motion the last time this was issued. Unfortunately, it wasn't succinct enough and detailed enough. So I'm going to propose the following motion, and if there's a seconder, I will speak to each point. So I move the council defer consideration of the proposed bylaws in item 10.1 until the following has been done. Number 1, BC Housing provides funding to the city to cover the cost of a consultant study on the impact on our community of the BC Housing existing facility on Joyce Avenue. 2, the mayor meet with the Minister of Housing and our MLA to request a commitment that the negative impact of their Joyce Avenue facility will be corrected. Number 3, BC Housing staff meet with council to outline how they will change the management model and operations of their Joyce Avenue facility and indicate what management model they would use for any new facility. Thank you, and if there's a seconder, I will speak to each point.
Second by Councillor Palm. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So as I indicated previously, I'm the only one on council and probably staff that has significant hands-on experience with the development and operation of a facility to help individuals with addictions and or mental challenges. I pointed this out to BC Housing at one of our first meetings, and I asked them to look carefully at the work of William Glaser and all of the communities across North America that have benefited from implementing what he considered to be essential in helping people with addiction recover. I have been lucky enough to meet with Dr. Glaser, who's recognized as one of America's most important psychiatrists, and learned at length about the programs that had been based on his work, and it turned out to be very successful. This is why I would like to meet with the Minister of Housing and our MLA. I'm able to talk from significant experience on this and let them know that the experiment that they've run in Powell River is very unusual and has major deviations from the norm that has proven to be successful. Unfortunately, BC Housing never followed up after they said they would look at the work of Dr. Glaser and get back. To me, that was an indicator that they simply did not want to change. So in summary, we have 90+% of the individuals, the residents of Powell River, that have expressed their views on this to say, time out. Do not do anything further until the current situation is corrected, and then consider how to move forward with a new model. What is most interesting about the majority of those responses, they indicated they understood the importance of a facility that would allow people with addiction and or mental challenges to move through a program. What they objected to was the result of what has happened at Joyce Avenue, where mothers have contacted me because their daughter, who was clean, went into this program and pretty soon was encouraged by a drug dealer there to start using drugs again. Also, one of the individuals who was leading the development of the garden there invited me to come and see what they were doing in the garden, and I accepted that invitation. What was most disturbing was 2 days later, I got a message by email from the manager of that operation criticizing me for having the audacity to go there without having first sought permission from Lyft. What made this so ridiculous is that BC Housing has set up that program so everybody in the program is considered a resident and has the full rights of a resident in any type of normal rental situation. So in one case, you've got people freely trafficking drugs without any concerns from the management, and yet the mayor gets an invite to see the facility, and they suddenly decide that that resident didn't have the right to invite the mayor. And the mayor certainly didn't have the right to come without getting Lyft's approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. As a reminder, we prefer to keep meetings moving and hold the clapping, please. Councillor Doe. No, sorry, I had Councillor Elliott, then Councillor Doe, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. While we appreciate you're all here, it would be easier for us to debate our motions with less noise. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
A point of order, there's continued disrespect in the chambers. It's not okay. It's not okay. I asked the chair if we remind the public that this is a council business meeting and we're here to debate the issues. And it helps, as Councillor Elliott said, if the audience remained quiet.
Chair.
Okay, enough. Thank you. We've asked to keep it to non-existent. So I'll pass the floor over to Councillor Elliott again.
Thank you. And just to help a little bit with the confusion, when we're having delegations and introductions and things like that, that's not the same as having motions on the floor and trying to conduct business. So it's a different part of the meeting. We currently now have parliamentary procedures happening, and it's a different part of the meeting. And so that is why it's different. And I appreciate the patience that you have. So back to the motion at hand. I also had intended to make a motion to invite BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health, and other relevant agencies to discuss the proposed new complex way housing project. My preference would be to have a motion on the floor that was much more diplomatic in our wording to other levels of government, to invite them here to have a conversation. So I agree that we need that conversation. I want that conversation. And my preference would be to have a motion that doesn't presuppose that somebody's done something wrong in the provincial government, and we can bring all of our issues to that meeting and explain what it is we're having a hard time with. I think that diplomatic relations and the way we choose our words when we write to the province and send invitations is important, and that we have sort of an open way of addressing these conversations when we're extending invitations. And so that would be my preference. while I agree with the need to have that conversation, and I want to invite those folks here and have that conversation, I don't agree with the wording within this particular motion. Thank you.
Excuse me. You're welcome to walk out if you're heading that direction. Thank you. Councillor Doe.
Oh, to start with is I don't agree with the mayor's motion. What this motion would serve to do is to delay the opportunity to address the land use bylaw that's on the books tonight. 2 basic land use bylaws that we can approve or not approve. It's my view, after listening to everybody, Mr. Hatton included, and all the people here, and all the other people who I've talked to about the issue of supportive housing in our community. Okay? I think there is a need for supportive housing. We have homeless people that need a way to get off the street, a way to transition from being on the street to being able to get market housing or get subsidized housing that they can transfer to, and along the way, hopefully get rid of any addiction problems or other situations that are stopping them from moving ahead. I think those things are all possible and they can be done. What if we just don't bother talking about that today? What if we decide we'll put it off to some other day and we'll ask for meetings and we'll do some other stuff? Well, homelessness won't go away. The people that are living on the street now and in the forest and in tents will still be there, but they will have less hope of getting off the street. If we delay this some more, what will the provincial government do? Will they, while they're choosing their next cabinet minister, decide that there's no serious desire to have supportive housing in the city of Powell River and take the money and go somewhere else? Will BC Housing decide? Sheriff, would you mind getting control of the audience so the council can have a debate? I'd appreciate it if you would.
Councillor Doubt has the microphone, so once again, and hopefully for the last time, please reduce the chatter to non-existent.
So where was I? BC Buildings, BC Housing may decide to just go away and not do this. The BC Housing has been coming to the city of Powell River and offering housing. It took them a long time to go from the first one to the second one. It took them about 4 years to come up with a proposal. We have a proposal now which would start us along the road. There's nothing that would stop us if we pass these motions tonight from writing letters to BC Housing and the Minister of Housing and to LIFT and to everybody else to try to get people to come together and find a reasonable way of reviewing what's going on.
Excuse me. The door, please. If anyone else would like to make a comment, the door, you can follow him out right now.
Well, Chair, I don't think the floor is open to anybody who wants to make comments.
I meant if
I think you're giving people an opportunity to leave if they're tired of being here.
So if you cannot remain quiet, you can follow the gentleman out to the door. Mr. Hatton, as long as you can sit down and be quiet, then everything's okay. Yeah. We're just tired of the interruptions. Thank you.
As I was saying, if we pass these motions to do first, second, and third readings of the 2 land use bylaws, there's nothing that would prevent council, as Councillor Palm has put a notice of motion to do, to make a decision to do all of the things that the mayor has talked about doing. After we do that, it won't actually put those bylaws in place because they need to be adopted before anything can be done to actually put them in place. So I think delaying this any further risks the opportunity to get housing that we seriously need. Could end up being the last time we get a chance to do it. I think we can pass first, second, and third reading, not go to adoption yet, and still set up opportunities to talk to BC Housing, to talk to the operators, whoever they might be, of the supportive housing that might be built, and answer everybody's questions about what's going on. So in saying that, I hear all the people in the background, and I hear all the people who have written letters and sent copies of the letters from the concerned citizens and from the Westview ratepayers. I've heard all that. Also got at least 20 emails today from people that I think are actually experts in the field, supporting the idea of supportive housing and the need and the desire to have that in the city of Powell River. So I'm in favor of not passing the mayor's motion and getting on with the first, second, and third reading of these bylaws.
Thank you, Councillor Dope. So before I move on with the rest of the speaking order, I didn't bring my referee whistle in with me today. Funny enough, I thought about it a couple weeks ago. So should there be another distraction from the gallery, I will call a recess. Council will continue this meeting upstairs in the committee room, and the gallery is welcome to watch the stream online. We would love to continue down here. It's a much more suitable environment. But if distractions are going to be held from the gallery, then I will move the meeting upstairs. I have Councillor Southcott, followed by Councillor Palm.
Thanks, Chair. So nobody at this table is debating that there are issues, problems in our community. Nobody that I know of or have had contact with in BC Housing is debating it. Nobody in Vancouver Coastal Health is debating it. Everyone agrees there are problems. There are problems here, and there are problems in every community that I have contact with, which is many communities all across this province. And there's a commonality that many communities all across this province. And there's a common, so as far as the motion to defer this consideration, I don't support the motion to defer, but I do support the spirit behind all the mayor's arguments to do that. I also support Councillor Elliott's arguments, and I would like to just bring up one element that I see in this situation, and that is that a municipal jurisdiction, a municipal organization like us has limited jurisdiction to force anything on the province. Province does what it wants to do, and we get to deal with them if we deal with them respectfully. And we can do that. And we have been doing that for years. That's been my experience for a decade sitting at this table. And I intend to continue. I also intend to continue to do that on the basis of extensive experience with homelessness, with addictions, both personally. Thank you, Mr. Hatton. 3 generations of my family have perished as well. I'm getting off the track here, and you should call a point of order on me, someone.
A point of order, Chair. Can Councillor Southcott came back to the main motion, please?
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson. We're going to start doing this more here to just keep ourselves in line. So we will continue. I am totally committed to continuing, but not, deferring this is exactly the wrong thing to do because it all rotates around housing. We need to start there, and then we can deal with the other problems after that.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Southcott, over to Councillor Palm.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's been quite a bit already said on this topic tonight, but I just want to clarify for everybody in the gallery and everybody online where we are with the process. And I know there are people in the gallery that want to speak, and they're going to wait to the end of the meeting because they have found out that with the 3 readings tonight, this is not final. It's just part of the process, and it would come back to council for a 4th reading. Is that correct, CAO?
Through the chair, that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. So just a couple of points. Councillor Doubt has raised the topic tonight that we are receiving a whole number of emails earlier today from experts. Well, Mayor, I want you to know that I also asked for the addition of notice of motion to put the the both motions forward from the Westview Ratepayers Association that we received earlier this week on a future agenda for discussion. Your motion is very similar to what they are asking, and I don't see a problem with deferment since we're going to have that discussion down the road, because one of the difficulties I'm having in this process is not having enough information. Enough information regarding what is presently going on in our first facility. I really strongly believe that that study needs to be done so that we have all the information on an informed basis to move forward. Right now, we do not. And that's giving me a lot of consternation. So having said that, there's one other item that I have great difficulty with, and that is I've heard from the public. And I've said from the outset, when this was first brought up in terms of our location that is being asked for here, I see that as a real obstacle for a whole range of issues that it brings up under a pole line, taking away parking at the hospital, which there is not enough of yet.
Same as with Mr. Southcott, Councillor Southcott speaking to the motion on the floor.
Yes, so we're getting there, but I'm just outlining the difficulty I'm having with the three motions, and it relates to location. We need a lot more study. We need a lot more dialogue. That's where I'm at, and I wholly support the mayor's motion so that we can get more information and talk about all the possibilities of where this could be located. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. I would say my thinking so far is in line with Councillor Elliott's in the sense that I would like to move the 6 readings that are up later on in the agenda forward, but also have a parallel conversation outreach. I had considered putting in a notice of motion or something similar to have that invitation for dialogue with BC Housing and BCH, because I think there is some opportunity for clarity in communication and dialogue and diplomatic intergovernmental relations. I don't think that this motion addresses that. I'm not interested in a delay, and as was indicated by I believe by Councillor Palm, this is a multi-step process. We have the opportunity to give 3 readings to two different draft bylaws tonight. Adoption would happen at a future meeting, and then a lease agreement or some other agreement would have to be made with BC Housing. And so this is a step in the process, and I think it's really important for us to not defer these proposed bylaws and instead address these on the table tonight so that BC Housing has clarity as to whether or not this council's interested in moving steps along. But I also would be very open to hearing a motion on an invitation to have more conversation with BC Housing and BCH to gain more insight, get some clarity on a couple of questions, and keep those lines of communication open. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson. I'll add my quick comments and then we'll take the vote. 4 weeks ago, when this motion came up prior to Thanksgiving and the vote was made to defer it to after the election, I said at the time, and I'll repeat the same thing again, that I didn't feel that, while I'm not opposed to having those conversations with BC Housing, and I think they should be had, I felt the conversations with BC Housing could be held at the same time in conjunction with the conversation or with the process that we're in right now. As Councillor Isaacson just stated, and we are just passing the first 3 readings and we haven't adopted anything. If a motion is coming forth regarding BC Housing and having that conversation, then I'm all for that and doing that along the same time as well. So that being said, everyone's had a chance to, Mr. Mayor, you'll be the last one, and then we'll take the vote.
Thank you. What I would like to know, since if this project that's proposed goes ahead, there will be financial gain to Lift and to Klamath Nation. Do any of our council members have a real or perceived conflict associated with their own interests or their family's interests in either Lift or the Klamath Nation?
Mr. Mayor, this is a bylaw about a road allotment. This has nothing to do with Lift or the highway just yet. Or sorry, Lift or the nation.
Yeah, but you're having a vote on an item for which, if people are in conflict of interest, they should recuse themselves, because this is the first step that could lead to financial gain for Lift or the Klamath Nation.
I will open the floor to any members of council who feel that they have a conflict of interest to remove themselves. Seeing none, I'm going to move forward. Okay, all in favor of the motion on the floor? See two, all opposed? Motion is defeated. Councillor Elliott.
I would propose a motion at this point in time as well. If I get a seconder, I will speak to it. I move that council direct staff to extend an invitation to BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health, and any other relevant agency for the proposed new Complex Way housing project to meet with council and discuss the project.
Second by Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you. So I was in favor of delaying while we were in election because I wanted to move forward simultaneously with our intention to improve communications and demonstrate to everybody that we wanted to have those conversations in a way that might help find solutions. Finding solutions, I think, is important, and I think it would go well for us to request staff to set up those meetings now that the election is over, and we can proceed to have those conversations, and also in good faith deal with some of the zoning that might be necessary should we decide to move forward in the future. And so I think that is the way that we should proceed today. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott, Councillor Dowd.
Yeah, this is a fine motion, you know, but it's not fine by itself. Okay. We've got motions that are actually on the agenda tonight about 3 readings of 2 bylaws. And I am quite happy to go ahead with Councillor Elliott's motion here. If we go ahead with the readings for those 2 bylaws, because that will actually progress where we are. I like the motion that Councillor Elliott has written compared to what was written by the mayor and what is proposed by Councillor Palm, because it doesn't assume that City Council has the ability to direct BC Housing to do anything. It doesn't presume that Council has the ability to direct Lift in any of its operations to do anything. We don't pay for those groups. They don't work for us. We're not connected with them in any way. But if we approach them in a respectful manner with the project moving along the road, we will have a reasonable opportunity, if we can do it, to sit down with them and speak to them in a respectful manner, or we may get some benefits as citizens of Powell River would like to have, and we could actually do something for people that are living without shelter right now. So I just want to clarify, this doesn't do it for me all by itself, but I would prefer if we were working on the bylaw motions first and doing the discussions with Councillor Elliott's motion second, but I don't control how we do this.
Just a deferral if you wish, or layman to the next one.
Councillor Isaacson's trying to get yours.
Okay, Councillor Isaacson, go ahead.
I was going to move that we defer this deciding on this motion until after the bylaw reading motions are addressed.
I'll second that.
Okay. Sorry, tabled, is that the right phrase? I hear from Councillor Table. Yeah.
CEO, for clarification, do we need to vote on a table or deferment to later in the meeting? If we're deferring it to later in the meeting, do we need to still vote on that too?
Yeah.
Okay. We had a motion by Councillor Isaacson, second by Councillor Dowd.
Point of order, Chair. I believe we have a motion already on the floor.
Correct.
It's on the screen.
Yep, and Councillor Isaacson's made a motion to defer it till after the other bylaws are handled.
Table.
Opportunity to speak to it first.
We'll get to that. Councillor Isaacson, did you want to talk about your motion first?
Or a question for our corporate officer, are motions to defer or to table a motion debatable? Okay. Yeah, similar to Councillor Doubt, if we decide not to read the bylaws, if we don't give them first, second, and third reading, this motion might be moot. And I would rather deal with those and have clarity on those before we decide how we want to reach out to BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health.
Councillor Palm and Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, just to speak to the original motion, which is paragraph 1 on the screen. I would believe that.
Point of order, Chair, we're dealing with a motion to table it right now.
We're going to debate the original motion afterwards, but right now we're talking about deferring it to later today. Do you have any comments on the deferral?
Tabling, I think.
Tabling.
On the tablement of it.
Yeah, well, you can do what you want because I'm only one vote.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. So the reason I moved this prior to the bylaws was, for me, it's important because the reason I supported deferring the bylaws till after the election was because this piece is so important to me, and how I vote on those, on whether we're moving forward with those bylaws would matter to me as far as how this matters to me as far as how council feels about having this meeting and moving forward with this conversation in a simultaneous way. I didn't put in my motion deferrals or anything that would impact moving forward with the next motions. However, tabling it would make it very uncomfortable for me to move forward with that business, not knowing the outcome of this motion. And so that is how I feel about tabling it at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Dowd.
Okay, I think I was clear before that if we had passed the first, second, and third reading of the two bylaws that are on the agenda, I'd be thoroughly in favor of the motion that Councillor Elliott has proposed. But there's no confusion about that in my mind.
Okay, seeing no other comments, the vote to move to table the motion until all the other motions are discussed. All in favor? All opposed? Motion fails. So we move back to the original motion. Council directs staff to extend an invitation to BCH and VCH. Councillor Palm, I think you had some comments.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think that this motion is broad enough. With just BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal and Council meeting, I would like to expand that to include a couple of representatives from the ratepayers group that have done a lot of work in this regard, that can report out to the community on discussions, because it's very important, since this is such a contentious item in our community, that communication and dialogue is fully open, transparent, and accessible to the public. So I would like to add, and I will move that we add BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health and representatives, one or two from the Westview Ratepayers Group, and I know that they have experts that help them craft their motions. Thank you, Chair.
And a motion from Councillor, amendment motion from Councillor Palm. Second. Second by the Mayor. Any questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. So I wrote in the motion other agencies so that staff might be able to be flexible and negotiate with BC Housing during the invitation to best represent everything that we want, but not tie their hands with respect to what BC Housing might come back with. And I stand by the flexibility of that motion that allows staff to go out to BC Housing and represent us and try to get us a meeting with at least BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health, and may add in other agencies to meet our needs if it's amenable to those agencies. We I do not want to presuppose how BC Housing might want to move forward with 1, 2, or maybe even 3 meetings with a variety of different structures in place. And I want to make sure that it's as flexible as possible for staff to get us what we need. So I'm not in favor of the amendment because I think we can accomplish that with the motion that we have without tying our hands. Thank you.
Councillor Southcott, then Councillor Palm.
Thanks, Chair. I support the principle behind the amendment. I support the principle behind the main motion. However, I think this is rushing a process, this process, that I would support it if I felt confident that our community would have a unified front. On Tuesday, the president of the Westview Ratepayers Society presented, and I think that discussion resulted in something that I would prefer to this, which would be preparing for what's being suggested here, only doing it together before we set in motion actually making an invitation. I definitely would like us to do this, but I'd like us to be prepared first, so I can't support either of these. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. Councillor Palm. Councillor Palm.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm not sure the word agencies includes a group like the Westview Ratepayers. I'm not sure what their designation is, but is that your intent to include the ratepayers in this motion?
Through the chair, agencies is a very broad word and can include nonprofits, associations, companies. Generally, they are of a representative nature. And I do believe it would include future meetings that could include the Westview Ratepayer Society or perhaps other agencies that we might try to bring into a process to make it as useful as possible. My intention is to leave it broad on purpose so that we have the ability to negotiate with BC Housing staff to make sure that we can actually get a meeting. So.
Remind again, please keep the comments down.
So in terms of the definition.
Councillor Palm, sorry, hang on.
I think I'm speaking.
Well, we did have a speaking order. So, yep. So go ahead.
So yeah, I would still like to have the motion include the Westview Ratepayers representatives for transparency and communication purposes for our community. Simple, we can vote on that, but we need to add that group.
Thank you, Councillor Doubt.
Well, I understand Councillor Palm's amendment. I don't support the amendment.
Go upstairs.
There's a lot of noise in here. Oh, I don't support the amendment. I'd like Councillor Elliott's motion. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And it offers an opportunity for us to invite BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health, and other agencies that aren't defined there to meet with council and discuss the project. Quite open. It allows for discussion. It doesn't start out. No, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. It's quite open and it allows for an open discussion about all of the concepts. I won't vote on accepting the amendment because I think the more complicated we make it, the less chance there is for success. And success, in my view, is finding an acceptable way for BC Housing to build and operate supportive housing to shelter the homeless who need shelter in our community. Not to have more committee meetings and disagree more often about what we want to do, but to actually make that goal and achieve that goal of providing shelter for everyone in our community. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not in favor of the amendment. And if we get past that, I'll decide whether or not I support Councillor Elliott's original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Doubt. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly, I am not going to support this amendment in the sense that I want the likelihood of us getting a meeting with BCH and VCH to be as high as possible. We can request meetings with other levels of government and they can decline, or they can, again, negotiate terms of the meeting or offer one thing or the other. And I think adding complexity makes it less likely for us to be successful. And so I will not be supporting the amendment.
Okay. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the amendment to, oh, sorry. Mayor Wasna, did you have a comment?
No, I thought you called the vote.
Okay, sorry. There's a little delay on the camera sometimes. Okay, all in favor of the motion on the floor, amendment on the floor? I got Mayor Wasna and Councillor Palm. Okay, all opposed? The amendment is defeated. Councillor Doubt, go ahead.
Thank you. Looks like I'm just going to give people a break and let them leave.
Point of order, Chair. I think you've explained previously when we had a disruption that we might move into committee room.
So I'm looking at the time right now. It's 9 o'clock and I was ready for a bio break anyway. So I'm going to call a recess. If there's anyone else that would like to leave during this recess, they're welcome to do so. And we will resume again in about 5-7 minutes.
Well, I realized.
Open it up because then it starts falling everywhere.
Oh man, I was in control of myself.
Written down. I don't actually have.
I don't. But They don't understand.
This is real world-class money-making business.
Yeah, they put a little like that.
That mic is on.
Is she far away? All righty. Thank you for sticking around. And we will continue as planned. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for setting up the conference room just in case. Mr. Councillor Doubt, you have the floor, so I'll pass it over to you.
I move that the City of Powell River permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw.
We have a motion on the floor.
The motion of.
I thought we had voted on that.
No, we hadn't go that far yet. Do we have any other debate on the motion on the floor? Councillor Isaacson.
I had a question for staff. I'm wondering, in your experience in, because you've had to work with Vancouver Coastal Health through the chair, Vancouver Coastal Health and or maybe BC Housing in particular, is there any additional information that would be helpful for you in being able to secure a meeting, or is this enough direction for you?
Through the chair, typically they would want to know what the purpose of the meeting is. And so any clarity you could give would help staff explain to them the purpose of the meeting. Thank you.
So I'm wondering if it would be worthwhile to have, I will propose an amendment to add a bullet point. So comma, including a bullet point, clarity on the level of services offered by VCH.
Through the chair, sorry, could you repeat that, Councillor Isaacson?
Clarity on the level of services that will be offered by VCH, Vancouver Coastal Health.
I think you might want to have level of services in general, just because.
Oh, yeah.
There may be a complex set of services offered through various different agencies, and you may get too specific to get all of our answers that we need.
So the motion hasn't been seconded. I'm going to retract the last few.
Through the chair.
Retract after services. And so I want to including clarity on the level of services as my amendment.
We have an amendment on proposed. Second. Second by Councillor Elliott. Councillor Isaacson for debate.
Yeah, when I think about some of the questions that have come up for me on this project, one of the items of concern addressed by members of the public is understanding the types of services that will be offered in order to truly support people who are dealing with a range of struggles. And I would like to be able to speak to that and would like clarity. I know that there's discussions on complex care and different housing projects have different levels, and it's based on an agreement with VCH usually, especially for the complex care piece. But that's one of the pieces that I am interested to know more about as a part of this project.
Australia.
Just two things. First, my original motion that I read out had discussed the proposed new housing project, and I did not call it supportive because they have a number of things lumped together, including that. Yeah, thank you very much. Clarity on level of service would be helpful. I'd also like to talk about the model of delivery. Clarity on but I think we could get there through that amendment seems fine, unless staff suggests we add, like, if we want to talk about the model of delivery and how it works and how we get commitment between the parties, or how that works as an oversight in particular, would that be something we could talk about in a meeting, or do you need something else?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott. So you're looking at essentially what the collaboration or synergy between the services?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with what you have, that clarity of level of services, you can add that into the motion, but
We
I
can
believe
broadly interpret it that way.
as part of the discussion. I wouldn't see you being restricted.
So you like this wording? It works for you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on the amendment on the floor? Councillor Palm.
I just want to clarify reason for taking supportive housing, because it just defines what we're talking. Explain why you wanted that removed.
Because the proposal talks about supportive housing, complex care housing, and shelter. And so all of those are three different things. And so I don't want to exclude how that all works together and what the model for delivery is. So I just didn't want to narrow it to a specific piece of the proposed project, but rather how it all works together and have that conversation with BC Housing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other comments, call the vote on the amendment to the main motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Oh, the mayor opposes? Okay, so we have the mayor opposing. That passes. Any further debate on the now amended motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Mayor, is that an opposition, Councillor Palm?
I just wanted to state for the record that I'm not opposed to the motion, because any form of dialogue on this subject is a step forward. That's why I'm voting in favor, even though I'm going to be voting against the other motions tonight.
Okay. That motion passes with Mayor Wozniak opposed. Councillor Doubt, go ahead.
I'll move that the City of Powell River permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw 2760/2024 be read a first time.
Mr. Hatton, not right now.
to
Mr. Hatton, not
let
right
it
now.
be known.
Mr. Hatton,
Somebody in
Mr. Hatton,
conflict of interest.
Mr. Hatton, this is not the time. Councillor Doubt, go ahead, sorry.
Is there a second?
Councillor, second by Councillor Isaacson. Okay, go ahead.
As I said before, I've actually gone through it a couple of times so far. There are 3 readings of this bylaw that are on the agenda tonight. The first, second, and third reading of one bylaw and then we will have the other bylaw for first, second, and third reading. What those do is they announce they're basically moving the process forward. And then at a future council meeting, a motion for adoption will have to come forward, where that can take place at a different meeting. We can have another full discussion and the public can come say what they need to say. It's not final, but it's a notice that we're moving ahead with the idea and we're going down the road.
So, Dad, anyone else? Councillor Palm.
Yeah, through the chair, I will be speaking against the motion for simple reason of location being proposed for a whole host of reasons that have already been talked about in regards to this site many times. And the one other one that was brought up at the end of our last discussion by a member of our development community, that this location greatly affects some of the multi-million-dollar bills that are going on for rental housing and subdivision in the area that this is being proposed. It is not fair to those residents and those developers that are going to be living in that area or moving into that area. I feel very, very sorry for the developers that have poured blood, sweat, and tears and money into that development, and then seeing this being proposed right next door. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't had a chance to really talk about this project yet. I feel like all the motions that I've spoken to have been fairly procedural in nature. So I want to be clear about my intention as to why I do support these readings and the subsequent 3 readings. And this kind of relates to a conversation I was having during the break with a resident. So when people, one of the reasons that people share their concerns about new supportive housing is that, where this community was 5 years from now and where it is now, it doesn't feel good, the changes that have happened. And some people will place the blame on that on the supportive housing site. But that's one change of what's happened in the past 5 years here. The other changes in this community and around the country are the COVID and related isolation, dramatic cost of living increases and related housing crisis, an incredibly erratic toxic drug supply, and a healthcare system that's not yet adequately adept at dealing with it. So I don't think a direct comparison between 2019 pre-supportive housing and today is not necessarily helpful because there's a lot of variables that have changed in our community. And so I think a better comparison would be an imagined alternate present state where supportive housing, the current supportive housing, didn't exist, where we had COVID and a housing crisis and a toxic drug supply and didn't have those 44 homes and related support. It would mean 44 more unhoused people who would need to find places to sleep, to use the washroom, and for some to use substances. So Councillor Southcott talked about chatting with other communities. And so I've literally been to other smaller communities like ours and also talked to other municipalities at UBCN. And many other communities have more visible challenges with issues like encampment and public defecation and those sorts of things. I honestly believe that supportive housing is part of why things have not gotten as bad as they could be. It is still bad for some people. People have died and have had permanent tragic health issues in this community because they have not had access to housing. So, so people are in very low places right now. There's that quote. It's relevant to our job on City Council. Nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. I'd say there's actually 2 other things that are certain. One, we all need to put our bodies somewhere when we sleep. We all need to go somewhere to use the toilet. Those should be private activities, and it's distressing when those things happen in public. And the solution is to get people housed. The people that need housing are community members, as you and I are. If you look at the homelessness count from 2023, over 50% of respondents, so that's over 60 people, were born and raised here. We could build another supportive housing overnight and be completely full tomorrow with people who were born and raised. Over 85% of the people identified in the homelessness count have been here for 5 years and more, and I would fit into that category. I would hope that if my life went sideways and I found myself homeless and in addiction, that I would find support and compassion in this community. When we look at substance use and who's impacted by the toxic drug supply, the largest cohort are men who have worked in the trades and got injured, We are all much closer than we realize to people who are impacted by the toxic drug supply. We're just not aware of it because stigma keeps people in shame and in isolation. Many people are looking for support to get out of addiction, to deal with their pain and their trauma, and are working on it with supports through things like opioid agonist treatment, therapy. Some people are looking for recovery beds and there aren't enough. Someone asked me or was curious about where I live. I live close to CRC, OPS, and supportive housing, and people sleeping rough in the woods. The broader community impacts of homelessness are on my street, and I feel safe. I have compassion for those who don't feel safe. I imagine being born and raised here, living in a safe and quiet community for years, and then all of this happens, and you see your first person. I remember very distinctly the first person I saw panhandling in this community. It was different. Or you see someone coming out of the woods and looking rough, or pushing a cart, seeing someone in mental health distress, or someone walking around high, can leave you wondering what's happened to your community. I moved here most recently from Vancouver, so I was used to people who moved around the world differently than me. I can walk comfortably by the OPS or CRC or shelter and drop off food left over from an event and know some people by name because I've met them at events at the theater or the community action team or at the CRC, or I've met them on my street. Uncertainty breeds fear, and as I know more, I feel better connected to my community and I feel safe. What's happening in our community didn't happen to us, it's happened to society. We've had long stretches of underinvestment in affordable housing, education, mental health, and addiction and recovery. We have provincial health officer and BC coroner recommendations that haven't been acted on, and we feel the impacts daily. When I read letters from people who are concerned with or opposed to more supportive housing, many of those concerns are valid. People expect that people in supportive housing will get support, not just a roof. I agree. People want there to be more access to detox and recovery, and that supportive housing alone is insufficient. I agree. People are concerned about getting enough qualified staff to manage the building. I agree. We do not have enough affordable housing for workers in this community. People want to know how BC Housing measures success and want the impact on the broader community to be considered. I agree. People want enough parking at the hospital. I agree. People don't want theft or disorder. I agree. Everyone wants to feel safe in their homes. All of this is valid. Some of these concerns overlap completely with this project, and some are part of a larger set of complex challenges that supportive housing alone will not create nor solve. I'm glad that we attract support from the province, including this proposal. Earlier this year, I mentioned the province announced funding for 12 more recovery beds in our community with McClatton Together We Can or Care? Can. And the Powell River Community Forest contributed substantially to capital improvements at their location and town site, but we still need more beds. Earlier this year, the province announced we're getting a Foundry, which is an integrated health services facility for youth for health and mental health and social services and more. Ideally, a piece of prevention in this larger puzzle. I am grateful when other levels of government, like the province, step up to acknowledge their role in addressing social issues, meeting people's basic needs. Overall, this initiative is desperately needed by our community. We could use it today. We cannot wait any longer to get to next steps. I fully support this first reading and reading these to third reading, as well as the subsequent bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. I'm prepared to move forward and vote in favor of this step. I don't think we can expect the province to come and talk to us about solutions if we are not prepared to move forward when we can. I went to UBCM and we talked to the Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction. We talked about and we highlighted our need for recovery spaces in our community. We thanked them for the ones that we got, and we told them we need one for women. We need better recovery spaces in our community. They agreed. We can't very well advocate for more in our community if we're not willing to accept what we are being offered to start with. And I want to, in good faith, have these conversations and talk about what we need. And I think we won't get that opportunity if we are not open to moving forward with the things that we are being offered at this time. I don't think blocking until we get the perfect world is going to work. I really think that will hurt us in the end. And so I want to simultaneously move forward while insisting on more conversation and better focus on solutions that are suitable for our community, because many things that are suitable for another community may not work here. And so that's why I'm prepared to move forward with this step, and also at the same time ask for conversations to perhaps look at solutions that may be a little more suited to a remote, isolated community like ours.
Councillor Palm.
Just a couple of points. First of all, when I sit here, I listen to the public. I've heard the public. I've heard the problems. There are many, many. And I've said before to council, my worry is you build it and more will come, more problems. And we'll be faced with an ever-growing problem in our community. I don't see, I was not opposed to the mayor's motion to defer because there's nothing pushing that we have to rush this forward. And that's why I'm going to be voting against it. Even the provincial government has come out and said after the election that they're going to have to take a second look on what's going on because there is so much contention out there throughout the province. The Safe Street program, is the numbers in there on the people that are dissatisfied with what's going on throughout our province are up astronomical. And everybody knows that changes need to be made. So why we're rushing something forward tonight in this regard without getting the answers that we need in terms of what's happening in our present facility, in terms of how we can serve those people better, need to be answered. So I'm opposed to the motion, and I will be opposing each of these motions tonight based on that, because there's no rush, and the location's wrong, and I've heard from the public. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Southcott.
Thanks, I'll weigh in. This is a road closure motion, but it's aimed at housing. When I came back here as a paramedic after 12 years downtown in Vancouver, where there was a fair bit of homelessness, there wasn't any homelessness here. Essentially, there probably was some, but it was absolutely not visible. And the ambulance service here did not have anywhere near the profile of mental health related, substance abuse related calls as what I came from in downtown Vancouver. And I was really curious about that for a couple of years until I discovered that the reason why, it wasn't that there wasn't substances being used in this community, and there was when I was a kid growing up here as well. It's because what we used to call public health, which was much reduced to the services that the province is providing now through Vancouver Coastal and all the other health regions, was actually looking after people, because it's easy to look after people when they're inside of a home. I also saw detox being done in homes by what's called the Integrated Case Management Team. That was an innovation, which means that you don't have to have, some people can actually do it outside of an acute care, an expensive acute care facility. It works. I saw it done. In fact, I did sleepovers to make sure that it was working. So I am really convinced that you don't start without, you can't detox people who are homeless. They go out, no homes, and it's substances again right away. I saw that too, over and over again. It's not, this is no perfect solution, but it's a step towards actually dealing with the solution, which is greater care. And if it wasn't for the homelessness that we have now, we'd have an awful lot less of the mental health and addictions problems that we do have. So we've got to try to get ahead of this. This is absolutely what I believe based on my experience, both personal and professional. So I absolutely support these, and I will support the next 5. Thank you.
I will call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Palm and the mayor are opposed. The motion passes. Councillor Dope.
I move that the permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw 2760 2024 be read a second time.
Second by Councillor Southcott. Wait.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but there are some things I think need to be said. And Councillor Southcott has talked about part of it, and the fact that homelessness is much more prevalent and much more observable in Powell River than it was even 10 years ago when I first moved here, 2014. What's the reason for that? The reason is not that supportive housing exists. Supportive housing is an option to get people off the street and set them up, put a roof over their heads, and hopefully give them a start in changing ways of life and finding a way to be able to move into acceptable market level or subsidized housing. Yeah. The homelessness erupted, in my view, because of the change in wealth, the change in the balance of wealth between the poorest people in our society and the richest people in our society. The other day, after the American election, the 10 richest people in the world got something like $64 billion of cash dropped in their pocket because of changes in the stock market. And what's been happening along the last, ever since 1972, as a matter of fact, when I started paying strict attention to wealth divisions between the various quintiles, the population of the country.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, wow.
What has this got to do with the motion that is on the floor? I believe it's got nothing to do with it. It's just talking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you focus your comments, please, Councillor Dope?
My comments, Chair, were focused on the reason for homelessness, because Councillor Palm had suggested that the reason that there were homeless people on the streets in Powell River is because they had seen the supportive housing and were drawn here because of that. I am proposing an alternate reason why there are homeless people on the streets of Powell River. And I think understanding that will help us to move along in solving that problem, which we would all like to see dealt with.
Thank you. I'll accept that.
If I can continue.
Just keep going.
So the division between the rich and the poor is increasing. When I moved here, a person could have a part-time minimum wage job and rent a basement suite or an apartment and have a decent life. That's changed. You can't do that anymore. When I first moved here, you could buy a 3-bedroom house for under $200,000. Show me one that you could buy and live in for that now. You can't do it. So even with a good working person's, a good tradesperson's income, you can't buy a house here. That's how people end up on the streets. And they are our friends and neighbors. There are people who have difficulties in their lives that lead them to be, lower income bracket than they were before. And the cost of housing has gone up, so they're out on the street. And I think we owe it to our brothers and sisters in the community to do what we can to provide housing in a reasonable way. And these motions do that. That's why I'm in favor of it. That's why I'm willing to fight for them.
Thank you, Councillor Dope. Seeing no further, Councillor Palm.
Sorry, Chair, I got to make one more further comment to my location comment, and that is, not only does it affect developers, it affects our business community, which shy away from coming to this chamber to talk because of their businesses that they run, and they don't want the business affected. But I know for a fact the businesses that are impacted daily in the area of the supportive housing. The ambulance is there on a regular basis. And what is happening in stores in terms of things disappearing off the shelves is really detrimental to our business community and the good people that operate those services. Not to mention the strain it puts on ambulance, firefighters, and police. All of those factors weigh into these decisions we're making here tonight. Thank you.
All the question, all in favor? All opposed? Opposed by the mayor and Councillor Palm, the motion passes. Councillor Dope.
I move that the City of Powell River permanent closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw 2760-2024 be read a third time.
And by Councillor Isaacson. All in favor? All opposed? Opposed by the mayor and Councillor Palm, the motion passes. Councillor Dope.
I move that the City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006, amendment bylaw 2761-2024 be read a first time.
Second by Councillor Isaacson. Had a comment, Mr. Mayor? Go ahead.
Thank you. What we are failing to accept is the negative impact that the BC Housing Project has had on many individuals that have lived and contributed to the success of Powell River for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And I will give one example of a woman that lived close to the existing Joyce facility. She lived there in a house for 61 years, raised her family there. She cannot leave a window open at night. She feels unsafe going into her backyard. So while we can, throw around all of these feel-good, sayings about what a little bit of housing will do for somebody if they have this or that, we are ignoring the fact that 90% plus of the people in Powell River do not want this until there's demonstrated willingness, BC Housing, to solve the issue that they've put into Powell River already. And by passing these motions, we are insulting all of the people that have suffered because of the BC Housing Project.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Mayor and Council Palm opposed. The motion passes. Councillor Dope.
I move that the City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006, amendment bylaw 2761-2024 be read a second time.
And by Councillor Southcott. Any questions, comments? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Opposed by Councillor Palm and Mayor Wasnow. And Councillor Dope.
I move that the City of Powell River zoning bylaw 2100-2006, amendment bylaw 2761-2024 be read a third time.
Second by Councillor Isaacson. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Opposed by Mayor and Council Palm. The motion passes. Takes us to section 13, which is notices of motion. And just for the benefit of those in the gallery and those watching online, when we adopted the agenda today, we added 2 notices of motion to the agenda, which obviously are not in the hard copy of the agenda online right now. Staff will add those 2 notices tomorrow, and they'll be updated tomorrow for those that are curious. But the 2 notices of motion are basically just to give council the opportunity to think through their thoughts on those topics, and they will come to a future agenda, likely in a couple of weeks, for further debate at that time. We've now entered the question period. Mr. Jones, do we have anyone online for questions? Okay, Mr. Hatton, you may come to the microphone. Mr. Hatton.
Evening. I don't know specifically how to broach this, but somebody has a conflict of interest behind one of those signs. Does it matter? I know that I look foolish by most people's standards. The beauty of it all is they're
Speak into the mic. A point of, you have to speak into the mic because people watch online. There's a recording, so you need to speak into the mic for people watching online or watching afterwards.
okay. I wondered who that gentleman was.
It's the mayor.
Huh?
That's the mayor.
Ron? Anyway, I would like to know what it is. We've reached a point, and I think it's past the point for some reason. My gut tells me that you're here at the wrong time. And I don't know how to operate the way you guys do. I just know that it ain't right. Something smells in Denmark. The old saying. What's wrong with the system is they've opened up 8 new stores are going to open up in Surrey. I noticed the other day on the news.
Point of order, Chair.
For
Question and answer period, yeah.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hatton, what is the question you have?
Sorry?
This is a question period. So questions on topics on the agenda today.
Yeah, it's to do with that.
Okay.
This is where the drugs come from. There's eight of those places. We're feeding them here. The second biggest industry, if you think I'm kidding, check on it. The second biggest industry in BC is booze. Second biggest. Think I'm kidding? Check on it. It's the biggest industry other than logging.
The question, Mr. Hatton.
And the point is, that's where all the stuff's coming from. You're feeding it to these kids, and it takes a long time. Those kids don't get dry.
Again, Mr. Hatton, question, please.
Oh. What are you going to do about the fact that somebody on that panel or counselor has a conflict of interest?
CAO, if a member of the public has a concern about a conflict of interest, what methods do they have?
Through the chair, you could go through to the ombudsman.
Oh.
And I can provide you. Okay.
Thank you. That's what I mean. It's so simple. It's a waste of time. I can't get what we all want. See the beauty of this place? They're all here because they've got a problem. They just don't have the gonads to come up here and talk the way I do. I've lost everything. It's no problem. I'm back on my feet. I went gold mining and I made out.
Thank you, Mr. Hatton.
But the point is,
it's not a time for points right now, Mr. Hatton. It's a question.
What are you going to do about this business of somebody on the council that has
conflict of interest is to be
Yes.
is to be declared by the individual counselor, and that's up to that counselor to do it. As the CAO has said, as a member of the public can reach out to the ombudsperson if they feel.
In the meantime, you guys are going to carry on with this stuff and pass it.
There's everything.
Or do I have to go to a lawyer and get an injunction? That's easy. I've done that before.
You're welcome to try, Mr. Hatton.
Huh?
You're welcome to try that process.
Welcome to try.
I can't stop.
Okay. I don't mind doing it if that's what I got to do. But in the meantime, are you guys going to pass whatever it is to let happen, something that these guys don't want?
Well, I can't predict what's happening tomorrow or even in the next 5 minutes, but for right now, thank you for your question.
Not really, but whatever. I can't do much about it. You guys have got tied up nicely.
Thank you.
As far as if it isn't, this is a byproduct of it. You have to earn respect. You guys are not showing much of this at the moment.
Point of order, Chair. I had asked, the chair asked the speaker to address the council chambers respectfully.
Any other questions in the gallery? Mr. Formosa.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Thank you for letting me address you. I'm speaking on behalf of the Powell River Chamber of Commerce, and I would say my 92-year-old mother who lives in the neighborhood just below the facilities in question. First and foremost, I believe in housing these individuals that need housing, and I think the majority of those that seem opposed to the location feel the same, that these people deserve housing. And how I defend it is I say to folks, well, listen, so if we've got another 90 people out there without housing, because we're housing, I don't know, 44, 45 so far, and if those people were housed, then they wouldn't be walking the streets in the middle of the night looking for whatever they're looking for, warmth, food, something to steal so it can take care of their addiction in the morning, or they're just sick individuals down with their luck. So if they've got a place to sleep, then they've got we don't have them in the streets. So that's a big win for everybody and a big win for them. Fundamentally, and I do have a question or a suggestion, fundamentally, and I've said this when I was mayor, and I said it just lately, I was invited to about 15 people to meet with Vancouver Coastal Health and BC Housing through the chamber. Fundamentally, the system says we want to take the folks that need help and locate them where the services are. And that kind of makes sense. But as the mayor suggested, it turns those neighborhoods into absolute chaos. I mean, absolute chaos, and fear, and ruins businesses.
Point of order, Chair.
And ruins businesses. Now, here's my question. Prior to myself retiring, and when I was mayor, when this issue came up, Naomi from BC Housing and I had a very frank meeting in my office upstairs, or in Ron's office, his worship's office upstairs. And I had said at the time, I'll support this project because it's going to happen. Okay? We all know it's going to happen. And this project has got services coming with it, not like the other. Lots of money and services. But in order for me to support this, and I would have been very vocal, is we should be through LIFT, BC Housing, there's another agency, BC Housing, LIFT,
BCH.
Yeah, Vancouver Coastal Health. 24-hour parole or security. Security, like they have in the malls, they have at the hospital. Just going around the neighborhoods from the facility, make a circumference, and we have security.
Mr. Formosa, question.
And I would say that, well, that's my ask. Go back to these folks and get the funding. The money's there. You've got millions of dollars for security, 24 hours security for the circumference around that area, where in the summer they're on bicycles,
Point of order,
in
Chair.
the winter they're in vehicles. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we just passed a motion to have a conversation with the principals involved with the project. All we did today was the first three steps, or the first three readings of the roadway rezoning.
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, you understand better than anyone here. So that's all we've done, but we've also passed a motion to have a conversation with BCH and VCH. So that can definitely be part of the conversation.
So what we're asking is that we talk about security, 24-hour security. That's what I'm asking, and that it really happens. And if we can be of assistance at the chamber, because we have ideas on how it could come down and work together with everybody, we would love to be a part of that through the motion that mentions agencies. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
And I don't know why everybody's so uptight and scared people are talking too much. Thank you.
Councillor Palm. Oh, sorry, Councillor Doubt had his hand up first, then Councillor Palm.
Just nice to see you in the room again, Dave, Mr. Ex-Mayor. I remember those conversations about the first supportive housing, and remember the conversations about security. What we did tonight, in my view, moving these bylaws forward, not completing them, but moving them forward, and passing Councillor Elliott's motion to have a meeting with Vancouver Coastal Health and BC Housing gives us a forum to do exactly what you're asking them to do, to talk about security, talk about all the things that may come up in the community. So that's what I think council is intending to do.
Well, the chamber's here to help. Thank you.
Councillor Palm.
Thank you, through the chair. Good to see you again, ex-mayor Formosa. I hear your ask. I hear you want greater range of security around the facilities. But I want the public to know that when you were in the chair, sir, we asked for those to be included. In the first one, we asked again for the second one.
Just a second.
And it's never come forward. Even though the money's there, it has not been addressed. Now, since it hasn't been addressed, Mayor Formosa, ex-Mayor Formosa, I've seen what's happened elsewhere in my hometown of Nanaimo, where the more facilities you put in, the more problems are created within your community. And what I see happening in my hometown and the strain on the population downtown in the core, people being killed, people being shot, I do not want to see that in this beautiful little place called Powell River. So, sir, even though you're asking for security, it's not enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And these seniors that we're hearing about tonight, when I talk to them about security, they seem very happy if that could happen. Thank you.
Mr. Formosa, any further questions in the gallery? Ms. Moffat.
Hi, my name is Lisa Moffat. I'm a resident of Westview. Thank you for passing these motions tonight. I think it's a great step on the pathway to get people into secure housing. I am curious, and perhaps it was an oversight, there are 3 partners on the proposed housing site. BC Housing, Vancouver Coastal Health, and Tla'amin Nation are responsible for the complex care services. They weren't mentioned in the motion, so I'm curious if it was an oversight or if they would be invited to the meeting when scheduled.
So I had the chance to connect with our CEO a little bit, and BCH and VCH are our main partners in the city. They are working with other partners on the facility, but our project is with BCH. I imagine. Well, we've actually reached out to some of the others involved who did not want to necessarily be part of that did not need to be part of that motion today, but could still be invited to that conversation. So I imagine as the details get ironed out, there might be more that, as Councillor Elliott's motion talked about other agencies, there would be some opportunity for other partners to be involved.
Thank you. And just naming that the nation is not an agency, they're a nation.
I use the term broadly.
Thanks.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Ms. Moffat. The complex care model is supposed to, like, there's some complex care beds in the new housing unit, but the partnership for complex care does not depend on that housing. And so it is a separate relationship the Tla'amin have in a partnership with the province and VCH, and isn't necessarily relevant to this particular project. It may or may not be. It depends on the things that and it's part of what we don't necessarily understand. And so we thought it premature or at least I did. I'm not going to speak on behalf of everybody. I'm speaking on behalf of me. It was my motion. We thought it better to meet and figure stuff out a little better before we made assumptions on how that model was intended to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moffat. Yep, there's a caller online, Mr. Jones.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, caller. Please introduce yourself by your name.
Burton.
Okay, go ahead, Ms.
Sherry
Burton.
Burton. Thank you. I'm calling in from Vancouver, and I appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. I just would like council to confirm for me that they understand that the problems with the current supportive housing has to do with its management model and the chronic lack of support and staff. So when this motion was passed tonight, talking to BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health, both of these entities, bureaucracies, are extremely intertwined with LIFT, and they are all in with regards to LIFT. So passing this motion this evening doesn't address the management, the model, and the chronic staffing issues and support issues that were promised back in 2019 and have never materialized. So where are we the community is supposed to have any confidence that sitting down and talking with BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health is going to address these chronic, serious issues that are impacting the community?
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Burton. The city can ask the province those questions in a meeting. We've passed a motion today to try and have those conversations so that we can navigate our way forward. We can't tell you tonight what might become of those conversations, but we definitely have been hearing loud and clear from all members of the community about what the thoughts are out in the community. We would do our best to bring those forward in a meeting representing our community.
So my follow-up question, thank you, Councillor Elliott, is who will be meeting with BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health to address these issues? Who are the councillors that will be talking to them?
The motion says it's council.
Yeah, the motion was for all of council, Ms. Burton, so that would be the plan, provided those members of council can be in attendance at whatever date is scheduled.
Because
sorry, the mayor's got some further comments. Just hang on, Ms. Burton, and Mr. Mayor, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to address one of the questions that Ms. Burton raised, and that is, if a city wants to have meaningful influence, then normal procedure is for the mayor, as a spokesperson, to meet with the minister responsible for the issues. So, Ms. Burton, I believe that if this council had agreed that this type of meeting would take place, we have a far greater chance of resolving the major issues that have resulted from BC Housing's project on Joyce Avenue, and also commitment in moving forward that this would not happen again because they would have systems in place like you identified. Thank you for your discussion tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Wasnell. Instead, what we've ended up with a watered down motion that doesn't do that. And so the community is extremely frustrated. And I don't know how much more the community can convey when you have the Westview Ratepayers president come before you representing 3 ratepayers groups and many, 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 many people in this community. It just seems like everything falls on deaf ears. And yes, emphatically, we support housing the unhoused. We want people to have a place to live, but it has to be managed properly and it has to be supported properly by programs and staff. And Vancouver Coastal Health and LIFT cannot guarantee, because they've already demonstrated for the last 5 years that it's pretty much an impossible task.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. We hear you. We're trying to have those conversations. We got to invite BCH and VCH to the table, and we have the emails. We have the minutes from meetings. We can hear what the community is saying. We're trying to have that meeting and have those conversations. We appreciate your call.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I see someone else at the floor. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Carly Tarley. I'm a community member, homeowner in Westview. I also grew up here, spent many, many years in this community. I'm here as a community member, but also as someone who has worked alongside of some of you for a long time. Worked alongside of some others that are sitting here for a long time. So I have a few questions. I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say everything. Sometimes when you've been around for a really long time, you have a lot of context and you have a lot of information that can be sometimes later down the road spun in a different way that maybe at the time that it happened wasn't quite accurate. But I don't want to speak to that. I want to speak to the fact that I agree with a lot of things that have been said by other community members, by Councillor Palm. You mentioned the location. I'm not a huge fan of the location, I think, but we also don't have any other options. We've had the complex care funding for 3 years. Those who have been around that long know that we had the opportunity to look at a building before when that funding was in place. My question, I guess, is how can we as community members take ownership on teaching ourselves? It kind of segues off of the last individual who spoke. They spoke to models of supportive housing and staffing issues and management. The mark was not always hit. COVID happened, opioid crisis, everything that Councillor Isaacson stated, it's a lot, right? But how can we learn and how can we educate ourselves on the models and mandates of certain programs that are rolled out by BC Housing, which is a supportive housing model, and mandate comes with specifications and staffing models and requirements and mandates, and that's all public knowledge on the BC Housing website. I did a quick Google search of this complex care housing platform, and
I'm going to try to focus you into the question you have.
I am being very, how can we, you, my councillors that I voted most of you in, share information in a more effective manner that would educate? Like, we're at this point, but this meeting, that's obvious to me. That meeting should have occurred a long time ago, and quite honestly, it has. Every single month at a CAC meeting for years. That most of us in this room have been there.
Councillor Dowd would like to answer.
I'm not going to try to answer this to what you're saying without being too confusing and adding too much complication. But if the city of Powell River and all the people here, including me, everybody who's a taxpayer, wanted to control supportive housing and housing for the homeless, we could do it. Okay? We would have to make a decision to use taxpayers' money to design, build, construct, and operate a facility according to whatever we could agree is the best process, whatever model we wanted to use. That would cost a lot of money. I'm not sure that everybody in the city wants to do that. What we are left with is trying to get provincial agencies like BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health to do the heavy lifting and the heavy paying, and to do the management and construction and design. That's the economical way to do it, because I think if we were going to go the full out way, the taxpayers would object to it. I would probably, because I think it would cost me a lot of tax money. And if BC Housing builds it and Vancouver Coastal Health figures out the operating plans, it's probably going to be more cost effective. Now, that doesn't mean there's nothing we can do. We can decide to move forward with the project gradually, and we can decide to bring the parties to the table for a positive conversation about how to deal with a business model, an operation model, and a treatment model that works for everybody. That's what I think the answer to your question is. Sorry if I've missed the point, but I think it's important to talk about.
Thank you, Councillor Dill. I don't think you missed it. I think it was spot on.
Mr. Isaacson had some other comments.
Thank you. I think another part of your question was how do we educate ourselves and also share that information? Because as you mentioned, conversations about supportive housing have been going on in this community for years, and the previous council was offered something by BC Housing, and they said, they countered, and we waited a couple of years after that. So the conversation's been going on for a while, and I mean, I can only speak for myself personally, but education for me looks like going to sessions at places like UBCM or AVICC where I can learn more from a municipal government perspective. And then there's also the community, nonprofit, and government perspective. I know there was a lovely documentary going on tonight at the Patricia that, I'm here, not at, called Somebody or Someone Lives Here. Someone lives here. And so the people that attended that would have learned more about opportunities for addressing homelessness. There will be a lovely event next Thursday night at 7 p.m. at the Cathet Arts Center above the library, where a speaker from outside the community is going to come in to talk about paths forward on addressing homelessness. So these are some of the things and that's homelessness. Harm reduction is a whole other can of worms where I'm learning a lot through attending some of the community action team meetings and getting involved with Local Leaders United and attending their sessions at UBCM or what have you. So I can only speak for myself personally. I don't, when I used to work for the YWCA where in Vancouver where there were home, housing and other programs, but I wasn't involved with them. So I didn't get to touch on it a lot. And being in a smaller community, the scale and the types of challenges are very immediate and kind of, they're right in front of us. And so I think one of the many things that I try to learn about on council, there is a lot of learning to do as a councillor, is issues like these. And those are two examples of things where, if given the time and opportunity, I attend and encourage other councillors to do the same. So that's my own work. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
I would like to clarify, because I believe that Councillor Dowd and Councillor Isaacson have provided information which is incorrect. And it has to do with the charter of a municipality in BC and the responsibility of the provincial government. So if you look at the charter of municipalities, it does not charge us with the responsibility of providing housing, mental recovery systems, etc. That clearly is the responsibility of the provincial government. So we can meet all we want with various groups and babble back and forth. The way you're going to make a difference is to sit down with the new minister and get them to commit that they will take the responsibility that the province has, and they will ensure that it is implemented in a way which does not have a negative impact on Powell River. Thank you.
A follow-up question. Mayor Wasnow, I'd like you to, I'm curious what your experience is in creating, I believe you said running, facilitating, or creating programs for facilities for I think you said addicted and mentally ill. I think that's were your words. I'm not sure. I made a note of it over there, but I'm curious what that experience is, as well as when that experience happened.
Sure. Through the chair. In 1974, I was completing my doctorate in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And at that time, drugs had been coming down from Toronto to the Maritimes. And it resulted in a huge amount of addiction. That was further complicated by the fact that a lot of parents said, we don't want you dealing with those drugs. So there's the liquor cabinet. Help yourself whenever you want. So very soon, not only was drug addiction a major issue, but alcoholism was, with individuals under 30. And so I was asked by the mayor and the dean of my faculty to see if I could work with various agencies and find something that could be done. And that's where I mentioned Dr. William Glaser. Very soon after I started research, I realized that what was important in having a successful program which provided housing and opportunities for people with various addictions to recover was, first of all, they had to have the desire to change. And then they had to accept that they had certain responsibilities when they were living in this facility, whether it was helping to cook, clean, whatever. And the other thing that we did was we required a 6-month apprenticeship so that the people who were coming into the program, they fully understood what their responsibilities were. And it was a great opportunity for them to come into a situation without having a negative impact on the people that were already living there. So I subsequently was involved in similar programs in Calgary and in Edmonton. But all of this time, I continued to be in contact with Dr. Glaser and learning about the various other organizations that had taken this program forward and just had tremendous success. So that's the background.
I'm just going to one quick comment. I appreciate you sharing. I've read your research project a long time ago, but much of what you spoke to, ownership, working, responsibility, road to recovery, creating community. As somebody who has walked the halls of supportive housing for many years, that program model is very similar to, if not exactly the same, as what is some of the supports that are provided in supportive housing. Obviously, there's other issues, but just so you know, a lot of it is very similar. So thank you all. Thank you for putting the motions forward.
Councillor Palm.
Before you leave, you referenced Councillor Palm and you referenced location. So just a couple of comments. The pressure is already on the present location where the existing house is, and this will compound that by putting this in that location. There is no doubt in my mind. So when you referenced that, the thing going through my mind was the city owns a lot of property. We can look elsewhere, and right next to the police station, if we're talking about security, that's a piece of land we could utilize.
I think there was something wrong with it.
Yeah, well, there was wrong with whatever site we look at.
No, it was like swampy. Wasn't that it? So the building
Some of it
wouldn't
is,
survive.
in fact.
We looked at that.
Yeah, I don't want to go into the details, but my point is, we see a model that's working to a great extent very well in Alberta, where these facilities are built with comprehensive care out of the center of communities, where businesses and citizens are not affected to any great degree. And I think what we're going to see in short order, because of the pressure that's on this government to perform, is some type of alternative model is going to come forward. And I really look forward to that day. And I want to thank you for spurring a lot of comment here tonight. Thank you.
Another location.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Councillor Doubt, you knew I was going to ask, does your daughter-in-law work for Lyft?
Not a question for me.
I would say it is.
What's your point?
The point is, do you think you're in a conflict of interest?
No, I'm not in a conflict of interest now. Wasn't in a conflict of interest 2 months ago. Won't be in a conflict of interest in the future, as far as I know.
When it comes to discussions on who operates a second building, you're going to have to recuse yourself, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
That's an absolute direct, what's the word? Your daughter-in-law, if there's any chance she could lose her job by the operational model changing or a new operator taking over. My point is, if there's any...
I think you're trying to ask the same question 5 or 6 different ways. I've already answered it.
Martin, to clarify, the city has no control of the operator. BCH is the deciding partner on who they choose as an operator.
So you have nothing on that, eh?
We have, yeah.
Okay. I do find, however, that many in this council use the inadequacy of the Local Government Act to do things that many people feel are not ethical, and many people do not respect this 5 members of this council. Anyway, I will leave it at that. I do want to say quickly that I'm all for supportive housing. I'm a very empathetic person, and my issues are the location is absolutely the wrong location. And kind of drawing a blank. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Ms. Martin. Any further questions from the gallery? Mr. Whitaker.
Good evening, Your Worship and council present tonight and public. So I got a couple of questions. Some may view them rhetorical. In my hands is the booklet that is sitting on the desk over here by the media table, open to the public, every council meeting and committee of the whole meeting. This is considered community engagement by those that deem whatever that to be the case, just like online streaming, just like these chairs here in the gallery, and so on and so forth. These are considered community engagement. In there is a community engagement report from BC Housing. I would doubt very much, other than me in this room and maybe some of you, that anybody else sitting there has read this. I'd be surprised. I read it because I take a big time interest in my local government. On the second to last paragraph, it says, the mechanism to and this is in the conclusion of this public engagement report. The mechanisms to reach the public were broad, proactive, and diverse. And the engagement held so far has been fulsome. And my question is somebody should probably define fulsome, because clearly that has not happened. I don't think. If it has, somebody could tell me. That would be the question. Where's the fulsome? Because it keeps getting shut down. Second to that, I hear a lot of talk about code of conduct. I hear a lot of talk about respect. I've been sanctioned here while standing at this booth for saying that or something in a report was crazy, and somebody said, "Don't you call our people crazy?" I didn't actually, but the words in the report were whatever. But tonight, I witnessed some disrespect, which I cannot let go by. And yes, the public is very vocal on this subject. And the chair is exercising their authority. Quiet, everybody. And when Mr. McKinley spoke out, a councillor sat there and gave the universal sign for get out. You're out. We're going to be able to watch that later on, not on the 3-inch thing that you have here, but we're going to watch it later at home. I have a 27-inch iMac. It shows it well. My question is there no respect from this council for the citizens at all? Not just to listen to them, but you're out. I'm appalled, ladies and gentlemen. I'm appalled. I've been thrown out of a constitutional meeting, and I was the only guy in the room. Do you remember when the 3 senators went around? 1980, whatever that was. I got thrown out because they wanted to have an in-camera meeting of a public. It was just ridiculous. My question to you is, when you go home tonight, watch that piece of video when Mr. McKinley left, and think about respecting the citizens that come here, spend 5 hours of their time voluntarily, not getting paid $30,000 a year and then asking for benefits on top of it, so they can be a part of the process of democracy and not be singing North Richmond, north of 60, or north of Richmond are the people responsible for the homeless in Powell River. I'm appalled, ladies and gentlemen, that somebody would go like this. Is that the universal out signal, referee? That's the question.
To your question, in sports it is. I didn't see what happened in the council meeting today. Sports, yes, that is the universal out symbol, but I didn't see the action you're referring to today. So that's fine. I can look at it later. You're correct. It's on the video.
Thousands of horse races, car races, and other events have been judged by the video afterwards. I hear they actually started to judge hockey games on that. Did this happen? Let's watch the video. Please go home and watch when Mr. McKinley walked out just before, when he started to murmur a little bit. Maybe they were exercising some magical power the rest of us aren't aware of. I don't know.
Thank you, Ms. Whitaker. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. I might have been the person that made that. I'm not sure who you're referring to. This is council chambers. It is our meeting of business, and we are speaking to each other. And there's an expectation of decorum in the chamber. And so if people are yelling out, that motion, if I made it, and it was definitely my feeling at the time, was wanting people who are disrupting the chamber to leave the chamber, as the chair asked many people to do.
So I'm not well studied on a lot of things, but I'm going to get well studied on it, just like you suggested tonight, to learn stuff. I spend a lot of time learning stuff. This is a public gallery and a public chamber and publicly elected officials answerable to the public. That's called a democracy. Isn't part of that game. I don't know if you're watching the rest of the world. I'm not even considering what happened south of the border. The rest of the world's getting tired of it. All over the world. They're getting tired of the citizens being told, you'll eat it, and it tastes good. It's not really Soylent Green. They're really tired of it. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy opens with, Mr. Dent, you got to build bypasses. And ironically, there's a big spaceship about to destroy the Earth saying, why didn't you look out, Earth, and take notice of the fact that this plans have been at Alpha Centauri on file for the last 2,000 centuries.
We've heard your question.
Yeah, I'm responding.
That seemed a little further than a response.
Sure. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions in the gallery? Mr. Jones, any new members online? Okay. We have a motion to go and close that got edited and sent out to a few councillors.
Can I read that?
Councillor Isaacson.
Yep, thank you. I move that council move into a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under sections 90.1. Can I have?
If we can just have a, thank you. We're still closing up some business.
A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. And C, labor relations or other employee relations.
Seconded by Councillor Palm.
Seconder, any question?
Go ahead, Councillor Palm.
Just want to clarify with CAO, if I wanted to add something for in-camera discussion, could I do that after?
On whether you read in the right.
It's written red. That's why we adjusted the motion.
Okay, carry on then.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. And we will reconvene. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance today.